Chapter 1478. Along with the descent of the Tao will list, the fortune blessed Feng Qingshan and the others, and at the same time, the boundless Tao will also descended. Yes, what the Tao will list descended was not only the blessing of fortune, but also the blessing of Tao will. It was said earlier that the Tao will list was not only a treasure to suppress the fortune of the Tao will sect, but it was also the general outline of the Tao will sect's cultivation. This item and the Tao will sect share weal and woe, and they would share weal and woe together. His growth was accompanied by the growth of the Tao will sect. As the fortune of the Tao will sect increased, so did the treasure. Everyone in the Tao will sect cultivated a Tao will, and there would be an additional Tao will on the Tao will list. Just like the imperial jade seal of the Great Qian Empire, what was suppressed was not only the fortune of the Great Qian Empire, but also the will of the people. It was precisely because of this that the Tao will list stored the boundless Tao will. At the same time as the blessing of fortune, the Tao will also descended, as if it was filled with wisdom. However, it varied from person to person. Those with more fortune would receive more blessing of Tao will. It would be pure. For example, those in the top 100 might receive the blessing of ordinary deity Emperor Tao will, but Feng Qingshan, Pang Bo, and the others received the blessing of peak deity Emperor Tao will. On the other hand, different people cultivated different Tao wills, so they naturally received similar blessing of Tao wills. Zheng Xian obtained the literary Tao will, Jiang Shan obtained the Emperor Tao will, Feng Qingshan obtained the Samsara Tao will, and Pang Bo obtained the Fist Tao will. As the fortune and Tao will descended, Feng Qingshan and the others suddenly trembled, and they all fell to the ground. The gate of heaven opened, and the auspicious clouds rose by themselves. A heavenly pillar above their heads connected heaven and earth, connecting the sea of karmic virtue and the Tao will list, and connecting the sea of consciousness and the primordial spirit, evolving all things in the universe. Feng Qingshan's face was filled with joy, and the space between his brows was filled with purple and green mist that interweaved with Tao markings. It was extremely mysterious. Although Feng Qingshan had experienced the blessing of fortune many times, he gained a great deal every time. But every time, the harvest was huge, especially as his cultivation grew higher and higher. If he wanted to improve, even the slightest bit of improvement was precious. Therefore, this kind of opportunity that could allow him to improve was even more rare and made him happy. Feng Qingshan was familiar with this kind of situation, so he was ready as soon as the providence was added to his body. In order to make better use of this opportunity, as usual, Feng Qingshan took out the enlightenment Bodhi wood and sat on the enlightenment futon. The divine bell in his essence soul rang, and he held the chaos spiritual liquid in his mouth. Rumble. With the blessing of fate, Feng Qingshan's primordial spirit was exceptionally clear. Endless will of the way poured down, but it could be seen that Feng Qingshan's primordial spirit had a myriad of visions, which were not any smaller than the visions that had appeared in the sky above the Tao will gate. Each and every one of them was like a jewel. The stars shone brightly, and the sun and moon were in the same furnace. Time and space alternated, evolving up and down. In the universe, since ancient times, the 5 elements had established the foundation of the world. There was the manifestation of reincarnation, and life and death depended on each other. Tens of thousands of auspicious lights rose up around his body. The auspicious clouds followed, and the dense purple qi formed a curtain of pearls and jewels. The light of treasures hung down, the fragrance was strong, and the mysterious sound was clear and melodious. Feng Qingshan held his breath and concentrated, allowing himself to sink into a state where a single thought wouldn't arise. He did his best to maximize the effects of this fortuitous encounter. His mind was clear and bright, yet his entire being had entered a state where he was half awake and half asleep. He listened to the eternal creation and the wonderful sounds of the great Tao. It was mysterious and even more wonderful. He did not know the time, did not distinguish between spring and autumn, forgot where he was, and forgot his surroundings. The only thing he could still think about was the operation of the eternal great Tao. It was really like having a pillow when you dozed off. In other words, when the time came, heaven and earth were together. Fang Qingshan had now encountered the predicament of the primordial chaos realm. His cultivation had reached the critical point, but the cultivation method of the next stage had not yet taken shape. No, it could not be said to have taken shape. There was not even a trace of it. Although Fang Qingshan had just broken through to the immortal realm, he had reached the peak of the late stage of the immortal realm. After this intersect competition, it would be too easy for him to go back and digest it and reach the peak of the immortal realm. He was about to break through to the God Emperor realm, but the God Emperor realm of the all-heaven Tao-proving manual had not made any progress. Originally, Fang Qingshan had been thinking that he would have to wait until the eternal heavenly vessels upgrade before he could comprehend it. Unexpectedly, with the blessing of the providence and the Tao intent empowerment, this step of the plan could be carried out ahead of time. At this moment, Fang Qingshan was sitting on the cloud platform, and the primordial spirit in his mind was running wildly. Not only him, but the World Tree clone, Mosquito Dowrin, and the two Ichi Sanshin clones were all sitting on the auspicious cloud, evolving all kinds of wonderful techniques with him. It was exactly the same as when he comprehended the immortal manual. Reviewing the old and learning the new, one could become a teacher. There were two things that Fang Qingshan had to do now. The first was to review the old and learn the new. He had to absorb and digest all the profound mysteries that he had encountered and seen since the beginning of this intersect competition to strengthen his foundation. Fang Qingshan found that even though he had cultivated the all-heaven Tao-proving manual, which was most suitable for him and was no weaker than a top-notch cultivation method, and he had also used the Tao aura contained in various top-notch treasures to cultivate his magic power and mystiques, and he even had the eternal blessing and empowerment when facing Zheng Xian, Jiang Shan, and Pang Bo. His advantage in magic power was really not much of an advantage. Although he also knew that he was not the only one who had opportunities, and that the eternal blessing was good and top-notch, it might not be the only one. It should be noted that this was only the Tao intent sect. So what if it was the geniuses of the heavenly evil clan, the primordial immortal clan, and the Saint Buddha clan? From this, it could be seen that his foundation was not as solid as he had imagined. One had to know that Fang Qingshan wanted to accumulate a foundation that would allow him to soar into the sky and crush his enemies with the power of the heavens. From the looks of it now, he might have been able to hold his own against ordinary prodigies, but when he was up against prodigies who were no weaker than him, or even stronger than him, he seemed to be unable to do as he wished and was in a pinch. Therefore, he had to seize every opportunity to build a solid foundation, and he could not relax at all. Then there was the Divine Emperor chapter of the All-Heaven Tao-proving manual. If this had happened before he became immortal, or even before the intersect competition, he would have been unable to make bricks without straw. It would be the same as when Timeless Arc advanced to the Supremacy stage, and he could not derive the Divine Emperor chapter. After all, if one wanted to derive the Divine Emperor chapter, one had to at least be knowledgeable and have some understanding of Divine Emperor techniques. However, before this, Fang Qingshan knew nothing about it. If the God Emperors did not appear, the God Emperors would reign supreme. The God Emperors were considered giants in small forces, and they were considered the mainstays of large forces. Therefore, the value of Divine Emperor techniques was unimaginable. Even though the Tao intent sect did not lack them, exchanging for a Divine Emperor technique in the Tao Palace required a massive amount of Tao value. Even 10 immortal level techniques could not compare to that. Even if there were free ones, one had to at least have a breakthrough in cultivation first. Chapter 1479. Fang Qingshan had not broken through to the Divine Emperor realm, so he did not receive the free cultivation technique from the sect in advance. His Tao meaning points were basically used up when he exchanged for the immortal cultivation technique, so it was impossible for him to exchange for it. Of course, this time, he had obtained the first place in the inter-disciple competition, so the sect would reward him. However, the key to all of this was that the opportunity could not be missed. Distant water could not quench present thirst. The blessing of providence was right in front of him, but he had not obtained the cultivation technique. Fortunately, there was still the trial in the Crimson Heaven realm. Fortunately, Fang Qingshan had other opportunities in the trial. Otherwise, not only would he have wasted this great opportunity, he would definitely not have maximized his own benefits. Because of the Infinite Worlds technique and the All-Heaven chessboard, the foundation of Fang Qingshan's All-Heavens Tao verification technique had been set. He used the framework of the Infinite Worlds technique as the foundation to constantly improve and fill in. Although he did not have the Divine Emperor chapter of the Infinite Worlds technique, he had the 10 Worlds technique and the 100 Worlds technique, so he was still clear about the basic structure. Coupled with the All-Heaven chessboard, he could deduce it. However, the speed was relatively slow, and he might take a detour, which would be a waste of time. In addition, it was not that Fang Qingshan did not have a Divine Emperor level cultivation technique. In the Crimson Heaven realm, Fang Qingshan had not only obtained a level 3 spiritual root, but also a Divine Emperor cultivation technique. Although this cultivation technique seemed to be a little unconventional, it was still a Divine Emperor level cultivation technique. Moreover, there was at least a template, which would be immeasurable for him to deduce the Divine Emperor chapter. Moreover, this cultivation technique did not only include Tao, but also skills. Moreover, the blessing of the Tao will sect and the Tao will empowerment were not eternal blessings. Not to mention whether it was comparable to eternal blessings, just the duration of the blessing and how much Fang Qingshan could get were destined to make it impossible for Fang Qingshan to deduce the entire Divine Emperor chapter in one go, even if he was fully prepared. In the end, Fang Qingshan was only the eldest disciple of the Tao sect. Although he was considered a genius and was the future of the sect, he was still a little lacking. He was only a potential now, not a cornerstone. Therefore, the luck he could obtain was not enough to help him deduce the complete Divine Emperor chapter. Not to mention the eldest inner disciple, even the eldest true disciple would not be able to do so. Unless he became the Tao sect leader, he would probably only be able to do so with the help of the Tao list. Fortunately, Fang Qingshan's ambition was not very big, and he was not greedy. As long as the basic framework was set up, it would be enough. It was just like the construction of the Immortal chapter. Previously, he had the Sword Emperor of the Storms lecture. This time around, Fang Qingshan could make use of the Everlasting Blessing. Although the Timeless Arts cultivation was the same as his and had just advanced to the supreme level, he had to admit that he could not keep up with his pace. He had to hurry up and continue to break through. In the Crimson Firmament realm, Fang Qingshan had obtained the level 3 spiritual root, the Lotus of Bliss, as well as a level 2 top-notch treasure, the Hibernation Pearl. In addition to the possible rewards from the sect, the Timeless Arts breakthrough could be considered to be almost complete. Once the Timeless Arc broke through, he would obtain the eternal blessings. With this opportunity, he could further perfect the Divine Emperor chapter. Moreover, only when the Divine Emperor chapter was perfected could Fang Qingshan continue to break through his cultivation without any worries. If he perfected it now, he would have more room to make use of the eternal blessings when the time came. In any case, regardless of whether it was the complete or the basic framework, he had to start from scratch. Therefore, Fang Qingshan did not think about how much he could perfect it. He just had to try his best. At this moment, Fang Qingshan felt that he had never felt so good. With every breath, the all-heaven chessboard flashed with divine light, and Taoist rhymes circulated. With the combination of the 10 realms art, the 100 realms art, and the 1,000 realms art, many things began to become clear. Although it was not enough to deduce the complete 1,000 realms art, the basic framework had been established. Moreover, to Fang Qingshan, his goal was not to deduce the 1,000 realms technique. The 1,000 realms technique was no different from the other Divine Emperor techniques. It was something that he could learn from. It was just that he borrowed more from them. Therefore, whether or not he could deduce the complete 1,000 realms art was not too important to Fang Qingshan. He just needed this idea. Instead, The divine emperor technique that he obtained from the crimson firmament realm required him to spend more time to comprehend, refine, integrate, and perfect it. After all, this technique included cultivation techniques, combat techniques, alchemy, and weapon refinement, and so on. Moreover, because it was an unconventional approach, he needed to spend more effort to eliminate the parts that were not suitable. There was no sun or moon in the mountains, and 1,000 years had passed in the world. The time spent comprehending the great path always passed the fastest. It was as if millions of years had passed. However, for Fang Qingshan, it was just a moment. At this moment, countless characters of the great path could be seen colliding in Fang Qingshan's mind, creating sparks of wisdom. Just like before, the clones disappeared one after another like illusory bubbles. After the great waves washed away the sand, what was left was the real gold. Those characters disappeared like the clones. They were just failures. What was left were bits and pieces of the true meaning and mystery of the Divine Emperor chapter. They were presented in his mind continuously. It was as if he was born with it. Imperceptibly, he seemed to be able to see 1, 2, 3, 10, 100, 1,000 chaotic worlds lit up above Fang Qingshan's head like countless stars in the Ganges River, dazzling and dazzling. The blessing of fate and the great path were not only for Fang Qingshan, but also for Peng Bo, Jiang Shan, Zheng Xian, and the others. No one would waste such an opportunity. They might directly break through the bottleneck because of it. For example, those at the peak of the middle stage immortal realm could instantly break through to the late stage immortal realm with the help of fate. Or they could deduce cultivation methods like Fang Qingshan. However, the difference was that they were not as ambitious as Fang Qingshan, who wanted to deduce a cultivation method that was completely suitable for them. Instead, they deduced the cultivation path of cultivation methods. For example, Jiang Shan was deducing the country fist, D was deducing the myriad beast fist, Zheng Xian was deducing the literary path, Li Mubai was deducing the halo, and so on. Or all of them did their best to make use of this opportunity as much as possible. Unfortunately, even if they gave it their all, they still couldn't stop it. It didn't take long. Not long after, the Dao list rolled up and retracted back into the mouth of the fated true dragon. Following that, the true dragon roared and instantly plunged into the sea of karma, disappearing without a trace. In the end, the sea of karma retreated like the tide and instantly disappeared without a trace. As the fate disappeared, Fang Qingshan and the others also woke up one by one. Feeling the changes in their bodies, they could not help but feel happy and regretful at the same time. It was easy to say that they were happy, but regretful because they were not satisfied. They wanted to get more, and when they got it, they wanted more. Chapter 1480. A man who is never content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. Greed knows no bounds. Looking at Fang Qingshan and the rest's insatiable looks, the others couldn't help but twitch their lips. If they weren't satisfied with this, how could they, who didn't get anything and were just watching, endure it? At the same time, an invisible pressure swept towards all the disciples. This pressure wasn't like the materialization of the venerable emperor or the birth of the level 4 supreme treasure, but it was spiritual. As for the outer and inner sect disciples, there was no need to mention them. After all, there was a huge gap between them and Fang Qingshan and the others. Therefore, they did not feel much about it. But it was different for the core disciples. As a core disciple, they were naturally superior to the inner sect disciples, not only in terms of status, but also in terms of strength. But now, this situation was broken. Fang Qingshan and the rest had also advanced to the core disciple level, and their strength was far beyond their reach. The feeling of being overtaken by someone from behind was not a good one at all. After being used to being superior, who would be willing to be inferior to others? Even when Jiang Overlord and the rest faced Peng Bo and Fang Qingshan, they couldn't help but feel a sense of pressure. This was because if they didn't make a breakthrough, it would only be a matter of time before Fang Qingshan and the rest surpassed them. In fact, many people would have been surpassed by them long ago. It seems that I should go into seclusion immediately after the intersect competition. Jiang Overlord thought. I won't come out until I break through to the deity Emperor realm. Of course, Jiang Overlord wasn't the only one who had this thought. The top 10 core disciples, and even the disciples of Fluttering Snow Palace, Martial Pole Sect, and Freedom Sect who came to watch the competition had the same thought. Everyone was of the same generation. Who would be willing to lag behind others? Zhuge Jin didn't know about the gazes and thoughts of the disciples on the field, nor did he care. In fact, he might even be happy to see it happen. Because there was pressure, there would be motivation. If everyone was spurred on by this and worked hard, he would be able to wake up with a smile even if he fell asleep. The inner court competition has ended. The top 10 inner court disciples, Fang Qingshan, Peng Bo, Zhang Xian, Di Yi, Ni Yun, and the others have all advanced to become elite disciples, and they'll be rewarded with Dao insight points. They can enter the various abodes to cultivate, and the first-ranked Fang Qingshan and Peng Bo can enter the Dao Insight Sect's secret vault to choose 3 treasures. Upon hearing this, the other members of the Dao sect, including the true disciples and ordinary elders, could not help but reveal looks of envy and jealousy. First it was the Crimson Sky Dimension, then it was Karmic Luck. Now it was the reward of Dao Insight Points and advancement to Elite Disciple. Especially Fang Qingshan and Peng Bo were actually able to enter the secret vault to choose treasures. Moreover, it was 3 treasures. It was truly impossible for others to not be envious and jealous. The Dao sect's upper echelons were determined to set up a banner and provoke everyone. The Dao sect's secret vault had been opened since the Dao sect was founded. Naturally, the number of treasures in it was self-evident how precious they were. Cultivation methods, divine powers, battle skills, heaven and earth treasures, panacea, spirit treasures. There was nothing that could not be found. Among them, the worst was probably a treasure of upper level 2. Peak level 2, early level 3, and middle level 3 could be found everywhere. There were even late level 3 and peak level 3. If one was lucky enough to find a peak level 3 supreme treasure, it would really be a meteoric rise. It would be of great help to one's breakthrough to Venerable Emperor, and even after the breakthrough. After all, a level 3 supreme treasure was like a peak divine emperor. Refining it would be like a peak divine emperor was completely defenseless in front of you. You could experience it from nothing, and it would be greatly beneficial to your breakthrough to Venerable Emperor. Moreover, not every Venerable Emperor had a level 4 supreme treasure. Except for those who had inherited it or were lucky, many Venerable Emperors had level 3 supreme treasures when they first broke through, and they only broke through after refining it continuously in the following days. Putting all this aside, the Dao sect's inter-disciple competition was over, and all the people naturally returned home. However, this matter was not over yet. As the situation of the inter-court competition spread out, a new wave of commotion arose once again. Especially the appearance of Fang Qingshan and Peng Bo's last stop, the Timeless Ark, the Beast Emperor's Essence Blood, the Human Dao Torrent, the River of Time and Space, the Level 4 Supreme Treasure, the Phantom Image of Venerable Emperor, and so on, made those who had not participated in the inter-disciple competition cry out in regret. They had actually missed out on such a wonderful event. In the end, Lang Qianli did not fight with Fang Qingshan. After watching the inter-disciple competition, he knew that he was just asking to be humiliated by challenging Fang Qingshan. Although his strength was good, he could at most be compared with Yan Di and the others. Even compared with Zhang Xian and Jiang Shan, he only had a 50-50 chance of winning. Not to mention Fang Qingshan and Peng Bo, a scholar who has been away for 3 days, should be looked at with new eyes. Back then, he and Fang Qingshan were still listening to the Tao together on Mount Fuyuan. How long had it been since then? Fang Qingshan had already left him behind by a large margin. However, this did not affect him at all. Cultivators would never fight over a short period of time. This time, Fang Qingshan was one step ahead, and it would only stimulate his will to fight for the future. Fang Qingshan couldn't care less about what the outside world was talking about. After the end of the inner disciple competition, Fang Qingshan did not immediately go to the secret vault to choose treasures. Instead, he holed up on the life and death island and didn't go out cultivating for half a month. First, it was to hide and quiet, and second, it was really to cultivate. Hiding and quiet was easy to understand. He had become an inner disciple, and now he was promoted to a true disciple. The exposed means, cultivation, and rewards of the sect were enough to make people get close to him, take refuge, and bet on him. Unfortunately, Fang Qingshan had no interest in this at all. He knew that the source of all this was his own strength. If he had strength, these people would flock to him like a flock of ducks. If he didn't have strength, he would be discarded like dregs. This was just like how no one cared about the poor in the busy city, while the rich had distant relatives deep in the mountains. Therefore, rather than chatting with them, it was better to have good rest. Although Fang Qingshan had dominated the tournament and was full of vigor, he had even triumphantly advanced all the way to the first place. He seemed to be awe-inspiring and respected by everyone. However, even though he wasn't trembling with fear and treading on thin ice, he was still mentally exhausted. Fighting against ordinary disciples was one thing, but fighting against the God Emperor in the Crimson Firmament realm, fighting against Pang Bo in the ranking tournament, these were all things that he had squeezed out his last bit of blood and sweat. Life and Death Island. Life Chi and Death Chi were distinct, yet they intertwined with each other in perfect harmony. All kinds of life and death attributed natural treasures were arranged in a picturesque manner. The branches and leaves were luxuriant, and all kinds of spirit beasts and fierce birds flew around, enjoying themselves. A rainbow pierced through the sky, and a purple aura enshrouded the place. It was a natural Tao. Under the withering tree, Fang Qingshan reclined lazily on a bed. His eyes were unfocused as he looked into the distance, and his mind was empty. He didn't cultivate or comprehend. During this period of time, he was recovering from the injuries caused by the battle with Pang Bo. At the same time, he was conserving his energy and recovering his mind. Chapter 1481. Whoosh! At this moment, the balance of life and death in the sky was suddenly broken. Suddenly, a clear bell rang. Then, beams of auspicious light descended from the sky or emerged from the ground, blooming like a lotus. Celestial music lingered in the air, and a strange fragrance filled the air. Suddenly, the phenomenon vanished, and a man with a solemn temperament and sharp eyes walked out. Who else could it be other than Overlord Jiang, with snow-white hair and long, narrow eyes? "Greetings, Senior Brother Jiang." Startled by the commotion, Fang Qingshan blinked his eyes and retracted his gaze. Smiling, he did not get up. Now that they were familiar with each other, there was no need for such formalities. This was also the reason why Jiang Overlord could enter the Life and Death Island directly without triggering the island's protective barrier. Jiang Overlord barely managed to deal with it, but he did not mind at all. TSK Tisk. Jiang Overlord looked at Fang Qingshan from head to toe, blinked his mouth, and shook his head. "It seems that if I don't break through, I'm afraid I'll be killed by you on the beach. People say that a scholar who has been away for 3 days should be looked at differently." This saying was true. It had only been a month since the end of the inner disciple competition, but Fang Qingshan's temperament had changed qualitatively. Although Fang Qingshan had been recuperating recently, his cultivation had naturally broken through to the peak of a mortal realm, which was why Jiang Overlord said so. "Senior brother, you worry too much." Fang Qingshan smiled faintly. "Although I've broken through to the peak of a mortal realm, I don't know how long it will be before I break through to the Divine Emperor realm. Compared to Senior brother, I'm still far behind." Although Fang Qingshan had broken through to the peak of the Divine Emperor realm, there was still a huge gap between the two of them. He had just entered this realm, but Jiang Overlord was already on the verge of breaking through. The two could not be mentioned in the same breath. Even so, think about your cultivation when I first met you. How long has it been? What's your cultivation now? I can't help but worry. Jiang Overlord pretended to sigh. This was a half-truth. Fang Qingshan was indeed improving very quickly. When Jiang Overlord saw him, he was only at the primordial chaos realm. Now, he was almost catching up with Jiang Overlord's breakthrough to the God Emperor realm. Most importantly, his foundation wasn't weak at all. It was as if he was advancing steadily and steadily, making a breakthrough step by step. However, with a state of mind and cultivation, he was not envious or jealous. The stronger Fang Qingshan was, the better it would be for him. Firstly, he was more motivated. With someone chasing after him, his potential could be greatly stimulated. Furthermore, he was the one who had recommended Fang Qingshan to join the sect. Innately, they were allies. Moreover, he felt honored that the sect had such an up-and-coming talent. His words were merely a tease. Fang Qingshan was well aware of this, so he didn't take it to heart at all. He knew that if he wanted to surpass Jiang Overlord, he had to at least comprehend the God Emperor chapter. In order to comprehend the complete God Emperor chapter, the timeless arc had to break through to the immortal rank first. Today, I'm here to bid farewell. After chatting for a while, Jiang Overlord revealed his purpose for coming. Farewell. Fang Qingshan raised his eyebrows. Senior brother, you're still going out? Of course not. I'm going into seclusion. Jiang Overlord shook his head and said, Oh, senior brother is already prepared. When Fang Qingshan heard this, he sized up Jiang Overlord from head to toe, and his eyes lit up. Previously, he didn't notice it. Now that he looked closely, he realized that Jiang Overlord's body had returned to its original state. However, he vaguely had the shadow of the God Emperor in the Crimson Firmament realm. Actually, after the Sword Emperor of the Storm's Tao lecture, Jiang Overlord already had the confidence to break through. However, he wanted to settle down for a while. Moreover, he was in time for the intersect competition, so he didn't go into seclusion. This time, the intersect competition had boosted the sect's luck. As the second direct disciple, he had also received a boost. It shouldn't be a problem for him to break through. Congrats, congrats. Congrats, congrats. When Jiang Overlord heard this, his face revealed a trace of a smile. There was a huge gap between an immortal and a God Emperor. Now, although he was the second direct disciple and had more authority than an ordinary elder, he wasn't really in the upper echelons. Only when his cultivation broke through to the God Emperor realm would he be considered to have 1 foot in the core circle. As for entering the core and decision-making level, he had to wait until his cultivation broke through to the peak of the God Emperor realm. He had to become an elder with real authority or the sect master. After Jiang Overlord left, Fang Qingshan's lazy expression disappeared as he sat up straight. After resting for so long, it's time for me to move. Although he had obtained first place in the intersect competition and the news had spread like wildfire, allowing Fang Qingshan to experience the feeling of being on top of the world, Fang Qingshan didn't feel too much. He knew that this was just the first step of his long journey. Now that Jiang Overlord was preparing to break through to the God Emperor realm, his first direct disciple brother wouldn't be far away either. The original top 10 direct disciples were also on the verge of breaking through. Naturally, he had to pick up his pace. If he was 1 step behind, he would always be behind. Moreover, after Fang Qingshan broke through to the immortal realm, he felt a sense of danger. Therefore, he had to work hard. It's time to go to the secret vault to choose treasures. Fang Qingshan obtained first place in the intersect competition and earned the right to go to the sect's secret vault to choose 3 treasures. The secret vault was actually located in the same place as the treasure pavilion. However, since it was called a secret vault, it meant that it was hidden deeper and not just anyone could go there. The Dowell sect's treasure vault was actually not far from the scripture depository, which was also the Dao Palace. Back then, when Fang Qingshan first joined the sect, Jiang Overlord and the rest had brought him here once. This time, Fang Qingshan could be considered an experienced horse that knew the way. Not only was the treasure vault close to the Dao Palace, but it also looked similar in appearance. Standing in front of the treasure vault, one could see the high eaves and the scheming, majestic, and noble. Although the treasure vault was called the treasure vault, just like the scripture depository was called the Dao Palace, Its real name was the Treasure Vault. Not only did the Treasure Vault contain many treasures of the sect, such as rare treasures that couldn't be entered into the secret vault, but there were also treasures obtained by disciples outside that weren't of much help to themselves. They wanted to exchange treasures for Tao meaning points or sect missions, etc. Whether they wanted a hand in exchange or choose treasures, they were all here. Therefore, there was an endless stream of people coming and going in front of the door. This was especially so after the Inner Disciple Tournament, where they had been stimulated by Fang Qingshan, Peng Bo, and the others. As a result, the sect was filled with the spirit of cultivation. However, because it was an important place of the sect, everyone was serious and spoke in a low voice. There were outer sect disciples, inner sect disciples, and even true disciples. Generally speaking, unless there were special circumstances, it was rare to see true disciples. But this time, the number of true disciples that could be seen was greater than that of the outer sect and inner sect. Chapter 1482. Actually, they were forced to do this. Generally speaking, if an outer sect disciple couldn't break through to the immortal realm within a certain period of time, they could only settle for the next best thing. It would be best if they could become a deacon of the sect or a guardian like Uncle Wong, or they could leave the Dao sect and travel alone. However, this sounded better. Not everyone could become a path protector. Uncle Wong was at most a guard. As for leaving the Dao sect, although they could still be considered a disciple of the Dao sect, they would only be able to retain a spot. Although inner sect disciples were slightly better than outer sect disciples, their treatment was about the same. Only after becoming a true disciple would there be no pressure. There was no time limit. After all, the late stage of the immortal realm could be considered a mainstay in a mid-level sect. However, even if that was the case, those who were able to become true disciples wouldn't be too lacking in talent. As long as one was a genius, how could they not be arrogant? It was just a matter of whether it was obvious or hidden. Just as Chong Yangzi had said, I won't be weaker than anyone in this life. Who wouldn't be? Who would be willing to be surpassed by others? One or two geniuses, such as Fang Qingshan and Peng Bo, were the best in their generation. Although they had just become a true disciple, their strength was comparable to the top 10 true disciples. Moreover, their talent and foundation had already conquered most people, so the top 10 true disciples were the ones who felt the pressure. However, if they were in groups of 3 to 5 and were left far behind by Zheng Xian, Jiang Shan, Li Mubai, and the others, they would really be too ashamed to face their elders. They could only say that they were useless. Therefore, they had to work hard. This was especially true for those disciples who were in the same batch as Zheng Xian. In the past, when they had become true disciples, Zheng Xian was still in the inner sect, so they had a sense of superiority. However, reality had given them a loud slap in the face. Therefore, the frequency at which true disciples appeared in the multi-treasure pavilion, the Tao Palace, and other cultivation-blessed lands could be said to have set a new record for nearly 1,000,000 years. Regarding this, the upper echelons of the Tao sect were happy for a long time. If it wasn't for the fact that the rewards for this inter-sect competition had been broken, they would probably have continued to reward Fang Qingshan and the others. This was the effect they wanted. As long as the sect's disciples maintained this state of cultivation, there was no need to worry about the development of the sect. In this regard, Fang Qingshan naturally did not know that he had almost received another generous reward. If he knew that he had missed out on 100 million yuan, who knew if he would vomit blood 3 liters? From afar, Fang Qingshan descended from the conveyance light and walked over slowly. Before he even got close, a heavy and unsophisticated aura that was different from the Great Path Palace rushed over. It was a dazzling sight of gold and jewels, surrounded by pearls and jade. It was the light of treasures and the smell of wealth. The impression he gave off could be summed up in one word: rich, rich, and rich. This is only the outer area, but it already gives me such a feeling. I wonder what kind of feeling it will be when I enter the inner treasure vault and the secret vault. Fang Qingshan sighed. walking up a flight of stairs that looked very expensive and seemed to be made of gold bricks. Xiao Chun soon arrived at the plaza in front of the bountiful treasure pavilion. If there were any stars in the Dao sect at this time, Fang Qingshan would undoubtedly be one of them. In terms of popularity, even the sect leader was not that popular. Of course, this was also because they had not shown their divinity in front of others. Although it had been a while since the inter-disciple competition, Fang Qingshan had stayed in seclusion. Compared to the inter-disciple competition, the sect had calmed down. But obviously, this did not reduce the passion that Fang Qingshan had in everyone's hearts. Seeing Fang Qingshan was like a fan seeing his idol. Almost all the disciples' eyes lit up, and a smile appeared on their faces unconsciously. Among them, the outer and some of the inner disciples stopped to greet him. They wanted to go forward, but they stopped subconsciously. They looked at Bu Yanran and the others, who had met or fought with Fang Qingshan before, and the true disciples all walked forward to greet him. It was not that the outer disciples did not want to cozy up to Fang Qingshan. It was just that dragons did not live with snakes, and immortals did not gather with humans. They knew that the gap between them and Fang Qingshan was too big. It was so big that they could not even look at his back. They could only watch from afar and did not dare to be presumptuous. Greetings, Senior Brother Fang. Greetings, Senior Brother Fang. Is Senior Brother Fang here to exchange for treasures? How was he exchanging for treasures? Senior Brother Fang must be here to collect the rewards of the inter-disciple competition. Seeing Fang Qingshan, these people immediately complimented him. Even the true disciples were no exception. Firstly, Fang Qingshan was also a true disciple now, and the most important thing was his strength. It was not shameful to compliment him. One should not slap a smiling face. Although Fang Qingshan was impatient with this exchange of pleasantries, it was impossible for him to keep a cold expression on his face when others were greeting him. That was especially true after he had just received a great reward from the sect. He could not act like a vile person intoxicated by success. Although he did not care about face, he did not want to become enemies with others for no reason. Thus, Fang Qingshan naturally returned the greeting. Fortunately, this was not a place for small talk. The noise here seemed to be a little big, and soon someone came to help Fang Qingshan. But then they heard a cold snort from the store of many treasures, like thunder exploding in everyone's souls. Everyone could not help but be confused for 3 seconds, and then became silent. They bowed to the store of many treasures to show their apology, and then nodded to Fang Qingshan apologetically. For a moment, they scattered like birds and beasts, either leaving directly or entering the store of many treasures to do things. Suddenly, it was quiet around Fang Qingshan. Phew! Fang Qingshan let out a long sigh of relief. With no more people to disturb him, Fang Qingshan could continue forward. The entire store of many treasures was much more luxurious than the simple and unadorned palace of the Great Path. It was made entirely out of a rainbow-colored crystal. This was a synthetic material. It was said to be made from all kinds of precious pearls, corals, agates, and jades. Those who did not know would think they had come to the crystal palace at the bottom of the sea. It gave off a formless aura of nobility and luxury, as expected of the bountiful treasures pavilion. Stepping inside, one could see that regardless of whether it was the inlaid decorations, the huge pillars with dragons and phoenixes, or the countless stars that illuminated the sky, they were all treasures. Even the ground under their feet was made of the best materials. It was truly luxurious. It gave off the feeling of a tycoon. For those with weak minds, the first thing they would think of upon entering was robbery. However, it was just a thought. Not to mention the experts guarding in the dark, just the seals in the store of many treasures were enough to make people shrink back. If someone wanted to break into the hall to rob or steal, the spiritual artifacts alone would be enough to make them suffer. Even a peak-level divine emperor might not be able to escape unscathed. Chapter 1483. In comparison, the Palace of Treasures was quiet. Other than the sound of footsteps, there was almost no other sound. The pavilion of many treasures was different. After all, Reading was a quiet thing in the palace of many treasures. Just like a library, everyone could read and put them down gently, immersing themselves in the sea of books. Here, whether one was exchanging points, exchanging for treasures, or doing other things, one had to talk. Therefore, even though everyone lowered their volume, it was still noisy. But this was only the first floor. Once they went upstairs, it would be gone. The pavilion of many treasures was different from the Palace of Great Doctrine. The Palace of Great Doctrine was more like a free-range environment. Whatever one wanted to see, as long as it did not disturb others, they could do it themselves. The Pavilion of Many Treasures, on the other hand, had professionals in charge of evaluating and exchanging items. After confirming, professionals would go to the treasury to retrieve treasures. The first floor was actually a trading hall. Everyone would have the professionals evaluate the treasures they wanted to exchange and then choose the treasures they wanted through the list. The real treasury was on the second floor. The treasury on the second floor only stored different types of treasures. For example, spirit treasures were grouped together, spirit roots were grouped together, materials were grouped together, and so on. Entering the second floor, the first thing that came into view were doors. On them were written, Room of Spirit Treasures, Room of Spirit Roots, Spiritual Materials. In front of all the doors, an elder that looked like a Methriel Buddha was lying on a bed with a fan in his hand. Fang Qingshan knew that this person was the same as Elder Zue of the Palace of Great Doctrine. He was the elder of many treasures who guarded the pavilion of many treasures, Qian Duo Duo. Though his name was very common, he lived up to his name. After all, as the person in charge of the pavilion of many treasures, no one could compare to him in terms of wealth, even if he only had the right to allocate and not own. Disciple Fang Qingshan greets Elder Qian. Fang Qingshan had seen him at the intersect competition before, so he knew him. He went up and greeted him. Qian Duo Duo opened his eyes. Of course, it was not much different from not opening them. Perhaps it was because his face was too fat or his eyes were small to begin with, but his eyes were squinted into slits. So it's you. Everyone else comes to claim their prize as soon as the competition ends. You, on the other hand, look like you don't care at all. After so long, you finally remember? Not at all, not at all. This disciple has just been recuperating recently, so I was delayed for a bit. Although Fang Qingshan knew that the elder was just teasing him and didn't have any ill intentions, he still wiped off his non-existent cold sweat and hurriedly smiled apologetically. If these words were to spread, perhaps Fang Qingshan would be prepared to be put in a sack. He didn't even care about the 3 treasures that he could freely choose from the secret vault. If he didn't care about them, what else would he care about? All right, I won't tease you anymore. Looking at the fearful expression on Fang Qingshan's face, it seemed that he had pleased Qian Duo Duo. He was no longer joking. All right, come with me. As he spoke, he slowly stood up and waved his fan with each step he took, bringing Fang Qingshan to the 3rd floor of the Bountiful Treasures Pavilion. The store of bountiful treasures was different from the Great Path Palace. The Tao Palace had a total of 5 levels. The first level contained knowledge below primordial essence. The next 4 levels contained cultivation techniques for primordial essence, undying, God Emperor, and Emperor. The Bountiful Treasures Pavilion had a total of 3 levels. The first 2 levels were mentioned earlier. The first level was the main hall, and it was used for transactions. The second level was the treasure vault, and it stored numerous precious treasures. The third level, which was where Elder Duo Bao brought Fang Qingshan to now, seemed to be empty. Besides a stone platform and a few senile old men, there was nothing else. Those who knew that this was the 3rd level of the Bountiful Treasures Pavilion. Those who didn't might think that they had come to the wrong place or that this place had been ransacked. Qian Duo Duo greets the elders. After Qian Duo brought Fang Qingshan to the 3rd floor, they came to the old men who looked like they would be blown away by the wind and bowed respectfully. All right, Kid Qian, your Elder Duo Bao now. You have a high position, and your cultivation has reached the peak of God Emperor. You don't have to be so polite. The old men opened their eyes and looked at Qian Duo Duo with a smile. Then they ignored him and turned their eyes to Fang Qingshan. This young man must be the champion of this inner disciple competition, Fang Qingshan. He's indeed a young hero. Good, good, good. Disciple Fang Qingshan greets the elders. Fang Qingshan hurriedly went forward and bowed. Even someone like Qian Duo had to bow. Obviously, these old men who looked lethargic were the old monsters of the Dao sect. They were top-notch in terms of status and cultivation. However, it was just as Fang Qingshan had guessed. These people were once all-powerful senior experts of the Dao sect, and they weren't inferior to Fang Qingshan, Qian Duo, and the others all those years ago. They had made great contributions to the Dao sect. However, with the rise of the new generation of disciples, they began to give up their positions. Now, few people knew about them. However, they were the embodiment of the Dao sect's heritage, just like the level 4 supreme treasures and many top-notch treasures of heaven and earth. Not only the Dao sect, but there were many of such old men in all the major forces. Think about it, let alone a divine emperor. Even an immortal's vitality was unimaginable. As long as they didn't encounter an abnormal death, they could be considered to have the same lifespan as the heavens and become one with the Tao. Generation after generation, the number of people accumulated was unimaginable. Moreover, even if they retired, it didn't mean that they had exhausted their potential. Many of them were still well prepared. Such a heritage was unimaginable. Back then, for some unknown reason, there were two forces that were ranked around 150 that got into a real fight. At the beginning, it was these divine emperors who acted openly. Then, one side sent out the divine emperors of the older generation, 10 of them at the peak of divine emperor. The other side did not want to be outdone. They felt that the other side broke the rules and looked down upon them. Did they think that they were the only ones who had divine emperor? Hence, they also sent out the older generation of peak deity emperors. They even caught up with the older generation and directly sent out 15 people. When the first side saw that the other side didn't play by the rules and actually sent 5 more people, they couldn't take it anymore and added more people. In this way, they added more people. Under the tactic of adding fuel to the fire, there were hundreds of divine emperors in the end, which shocked the whole world. With so many divine emperors, even venerable sovereigns didn't dare to take them lightly. Once they risked their lives, it wasn't impossible to drag venerable sovereigns down with them. The reason why the Dao sect could retreat and scathe back then was because Elder Tan risked his life with a level 4 supreme treasure. He was crazy enough to drag others down with him, even if he had to die. This completely frightened his opponents. Although they might not be able to kill venerable sovereigns, they would inevitably be seriously injured. In life, there were friends and enemies. It was easy to add flowers to a brocade, but it was more difficult to add insult to injury. Once you were found to be weak, not many people were willing to help you. However, there might be people who wanted to take advantage of you. Chapter 1484. Therefore, even venerable sovereigns didn't dare to take the risk when Old Tan was risking his life with a level 4 supreme treasure. The point was that it wasn't worth it. So what if he killed Old Tan? Putting aside the fact that he was injured, there was more than one person eyeing the Dao sect. If he was weak, not to mention the Dao sect, he and the force behind him would probably be treated as a piece of meat that could be easily obtained. At that time, he would suffer a double loss. Therefore, venerable sovereigns rarely fought, not only because their fighting capacity and destructive power were too great, but also because they were a kind of deterrence. More importantly, it was a form of deterrence. Only when the fist was in his hand would the deterrence be the greatest. Once it was unleashed, the consequences would be unpredictable. Once a flaw was exposed, it would be easy for others to take advantage of it. The great way was the only way. It was difficult to break through to the venerable sovereign level because there weren't many auxiliary methods. But there was a universal method, which was to kill to prove the way. If you could kill a venerable sovereign, it would be enough for a peak divine emperor to break through to the emperor god level. Normally, no one dared to kill a venerable sovereign at his peak, but it might be different if he encountered a seriously injured venerable sovereign. Just like those people who had been stuck at the peak of venerable sovereign level for many years, they didn't hesitate even though they knew they would die in the river of time and space or on the battlefield of the emperors. Because compared to the danger, the situation of being stuck at a level without any hope of breaking through was more desperate. After a few words of greeting, the leading elder asked Fong Qingshan to stand on the stone platform behind them. Go ahead. This stone platform looked a bit ordinary. There was nothing on it except for the outline of the 8 trigrams. If it was not placed on the 3rd floor of Treasure's Pavilion and guarded by several peak stage immortal Emperor Realm experts, it would be hard for people to take a second glance at it if it was placed somewhere else. In fact, there was a transmitting formation on this stone platform. Yes, the legendary secret treasury of the Tao School wasn't in the Treasure Pavilion. There was only one entrance here. As for whether this was the only entrance, it was hard to say. Anyway, this was the only entrance that was known to the public. Through this entrance, one could reach the secret treasury. As for the true location of the secret vault, apart from the sect leader, perhaps only the elders guarding the secret vault knew. Even Xian Duo, Elder Duo Bao, and the few elders guarding the teleportation formation in front of him probably didn't know the exact location. After all, the secret treasury was too important. It was equivalent to the Tao School, not counting the level 4 supreme treasures, but 50% of its resources were in there. Once something went wrong, the blow would probably be no less than the death of a venerable sovereign. Therefore, no matter how secretive it wouldn't be too much. Fong Qingshan obediently stood on the stone platform and stood in the center of the 8 trigrams pattern. Rise! Following that, the elders, including Qian Duo, each took out a command medallion and activated it, forming a series of complicated hand seals. Yes, in order to activate the teleportation formation, another method was required. Without the tokens in the hands of the elders, even if they arrived here, they would not be able to activate the teleportation formation. Shwa! Like a key, the token shot out several beams of light and landed on the 8 trigrams. All of a sudden, the stone platform shone brightly. It emitted an invisible devouring force and sucked Fong Qingshan in on the spot. During this process, Fong Qingshan did not resist. Of course, there was no room for him to resist. Just like the last time he used the Storm Sword token to teleport, he was completely out of control. Fortunately, this state of loss of control only lasted for a moment. In the blink of an eye, the scenery in front of him changed. Whoosh! Whoosh! Before he could adapt to the new environment, Fong Qingshan heard a thunderous, snoring sound. Looking in the direction of the sound, he saw that not far away, the first thing that came into view was a tower. It looked very spectacular. It was divided into 9 layers, and there were countless ancient and profound Tao patterns and restrictions engraved on it. The nodes and runes were like stars that refracted light and glistened brilliantly. It was an extremely beautiful sight. Seeing this thing, Fong Qingshan suddenly felt a special sense of familiarity. He could not help but think of a unit building in his timeless arc, the Zhaixing Lu. The Zhaixing Lu was a type of storage treasure, a little like Doraemon's pocket, the Lucky Cat's jar, and so on. However, compared to those that were purely storage spaces, the Zhaixing Lu could absorb the power of a treasure to nourish the treasure in the tower. It could even become stronger, and there would be a situation where the treasure's grade would break through and transform. However, this kind of situation was very rare, and it was very slow, unless the treasure itself was already at the point where it would naturally break through. Other than nurturing treasures, the Zhaixing Lu could normally be used to store all kinds of precious treasures. Once one wanted to take them out, under normal circumstances, it completely depended on luck. Those with high luck and good fortune would have an easier time picking treasures of high quality. Those with low luck and bad luck could easily imagine what would happen to them. However, it could also depend on fate. It was actually about compatibility. If one had a high compatibility with a treasure, one could easily pick it up. In fact, if one was strong enough to suppress everything, then there was no need to say anything more. Although the Zhaixing Lu was divided into 9 levels, it was not like the Great Tao Palace or the Hall of Bountiful Treasures, which only had a starry sky inside. It was just that the depth was different. The stars in the starry sky were treasures, and all kinds of treasures would be sent into the Zhaixing Lu to become stars of different brightness. Some were big, some were small, and it could contain an infinite number of things. Generally speaking, the small, dimmer stars were on the first level, which was the outer edge of the starry sky. The big, brighter stars were on the 9th level, which was the deepest part of the starry sky. Fang Qingshan had not been wrong. This treasure was indeed the Zhaixing Lu, but compared to the Zhaixing Lu in Fang Qingshan's timeless arc, its grade was not the same. Fang Qingshan's Zhaixing Lu was not even 2nd level, but this Zhaixing Lu was at the peak of 3rd level. It was a treasure in itself. At the entrance of the tower, there was a sloppy-looking old man lying in front of the door. He was the one who was snoring. Even his saliva was dripping out. The corners of Fang Qingshan's mouth twitched when he saw this scene in such a grand, dignified, and precious place. Even so, he did not dare to show any signs of abnormality on his face. Don't be fooled by his unsightly appearance. The fact that he was able to appear here was a reminder in itself. Greetings, Dao sect disciple Fang Qingshan. I have been rewarded by the sect, and I am here to collect my reward. I say, is this going to last for 3 years after not opening for business for 3 years? The snoring old man seemed to have been woken up by Fang Qingshan. He opened his eyes impatiently and shouted, one after another, "Isn't it good for all of you to come to collect your rewards together? Do you think this is a market? Really, you're disturbing my sleep." Chapter 1485. Sorry to trouble you, Senior. It's my fault. I'll definitely follow your instructions next time. Not to mention the other party's cultivation and status. Fang Qingshan did not refute the fact that the county magistrate was not as good as the current manager. Do you think there's a next time? Do you think choosing treasures in the secret treasury is like picking cabbages? Do you think you can come whenever you want? The old man snorted and rolled his eyes. Not to mention you, even divine emperors and peak divine emperors can't come in even once. This is the secret treasury. Do you know what it is? It's not something the treasure pavilion can compare to. The old man didn't know if it was because he had no one to talk to all these years, but he kept attacking him with words. Peak divine emperors. Fang Qingshan's attention was focused on this. Although he had guessed that this person should be an old monster, he thought he was just like the old man who guarded the teleportation formation. He didn't expect him to be even older. Judging from his words, he wanted to catch all the peak divine emperors in one fell swoop. In this way, his status could be imagined. As a guard of the secret treasury, his strength was even greater. Perhaps even Old Tan, who guarded the heavenly dimensional gate, couldn't be compared to him. Fang Qingshan sensed a trace of venerable emperor from him. Could it be that our Dao sect already has another venerable emperor expert? Fang Qingshan thought. If the Dao sect really had secretly promoted a venerable emperor, it would be really interesting. Once it reached a critical moment, it would definitely play the role of turning the tables against the wind. It would make some people who wanted to attack the Dao sect suffer. For Fang Qingshan, the stronger the sect was, the better it was for him. It was better to rely on a big tree. Unfortunately, he thought too much. If the Dao sect really had another venerable emperor, it definitely couldn't be hidden from others. More importantly, the Dao sect wouldn't hide themselves. It wasn't always appropriate to pretend to be weak. However, although he wasn't a venerable emperor, he was almost there. What Fang Qingshan did not know was that this person could be said to be one of the most senior and strongest elders in the Dao sect. His seniority was the highest because this person was not a human, but an artifact spirit. He was a level 4 spirit treasure of the Dao sect's patriarch. Although the patriarch had perished and he was severely injured, he did not dissipate. Not to mention the fact that he himself was a level 4 spirit treasure. This was also why Fang Qingshan could sense an emperor's aura from him. In the Dao sect, only the Dao ranking, which was also a level 4 treasure and the sect master of that generation, who was the disciple of the ancestor, could compare to it. All right, you can go in and choose for yourself. As for what you get, that will depend on your luck. Once you've made your choice, say leave in your heart, and you'll be teleported away. Go on, don't disturb this old man's sleep. After saying that, the old man lay down again and snored. Seeing this, Fang Qingshan could not help but shrug his shoulders. He walked around the old man, pushed open the door of Zhaixing Lu, and walked in. Zhaixing Lu was a space-type magical treasure. Inside, there was a mustard seed hidden within. Crossing the international gate was like crossing through space. Although it could not be compared to the teleportation array from before, even with Fang Qingshan's mental strength, he was still in a trance. The stars before his eyes spun, and the surrounding scenery immediately changed. Zhaixing Lu and the old man had all disappeared. What replaced them was an endless starry sky. It was dazzling, and, for a moment, it was as if he had arrived in the Zhoutian star array. Being under the starry sky, Fang Qingshan was amazed. At this moment, in this starry sky, countless streams of light streaked across his eyes like meteors. Within those streams of light, he could vaguely feel a wave of energy of varying strengths. Seeing was believing, and seeing was better than hearing about it. He was originally someone who had Zhaixing Lu. In comparison, there was no comparison at all. Whether it was in terms of quantity or quality, he was completely outclassed. Truly, there was no harm without comparison. Actually, this was not surprising. Although the Dao sect was not as powerful as the primordial immortal tribe, the heavenly evil tribe, or the sacred Buddha tribe, it was still one of the most ancient factions in the universe. They had experienced countless great tribulations of the world, and the number of great sects they had destroyed was not just one or two. Calamities were also great opportunities. The best way to get rich was through war. The treasures in the secret vault were obtained from the calamities, the destroyed sects, the disciples' fortuitous encounters, the treasures exchanged, the treasures obtained from the development of mystic realms, and so on. There were Dharma treasures and weapons left behind by fallen experts. For example, in front of Zhaixing Lu, the Dao sect's patriarch's Dharma treasure, the artifact spirit. There were even corpses, blood essence, primordial spirit, laws, and so on. There were also innate divine abilities, cultivation techniques, and battle techniques. There were also various top-notch spirit roots that were nurtured by the creation of heaven and earth. Not to mention the many other benefits. Even if it wasn't a lot once or twice, it would accumulate over a long period of time. Most importantly, unless it was a huge contribution, Zhaixing Lu usually only allowed entry. Didn't you hear what the old man said? If it didn't open for 3 years, even a peak god emperor wouldn't be able to enter and obtain treasures. Even though Fang Qingshan had seen enough rare treasures, he still couldn't help but inwardly gasp when he saw these rare treasures. He was extremely tempted. He wanted to take all of them for himself. However, he could only think about it. He couldn't even say it out loud. If he dared to take any action, he might not even live for 3 seconds. Looking around, there were only a few immortal level or level 2 treasures. Even the level 2 treasures weren't ordinary level 2 treasures. They were rare treasures among level 2 treasures, comparable to level 3 treasures. Most of them were level 3 treasures. There was immortal metal, 12-colored coral, sacred Buddha's tear, doomsday eye, myriad worlds investiture tablet, supreme emperor's invitation, worldly wind thundercloud sword, immeasurable eternal sand, 3 emperor Tao fruit tree, myriad Tao supreme flower, life and death grass. Unfortunately, these things could only be seen. It wouldn't be easy to pluck them. First of all, what he saw might not be real. There would be illusions that would interfere with his judgment. Secondly, these stars weren't just waiting for him to pluck them. As mentioned earlier, if he wanted to pluck treasures from Zhaixing Lu, it all depended on his luck. It was fine if he was extremely lucky. He could choose the treasures himself. This was the simplest and best method. If it was slightly worse, he could only rely on his senses to see what treasures were fated with him. Then he could slowly guide the treasures and directly grab them. Not only was it time-consuming and laborious, but there was also a high chance that the rewards wouldn't be satisfactory. Of course, apart from luck, if he had the strength to suppress Zhai Xinglu, he wouldn't need to worry about all this. Fang Qingshan clearly didn't have the strength to sweep everything away. If he wanted to pluck the stars, he could only rely on luck. Chapter 1486. Luck was a good thing. When it came, heaven and earth would help. When luck was strong, it was always successful. Just like the Sword Emperor of Storm, in order to achieve the way, he had been courting death and venturing into all kinds of void natural disasters. But in the end, not only did he not die, but he also survived. Instead, he rose to the sky and proved his way to become an emperor. However, when one's luck was weak, it was really difficult to drink cold water. Just like the Red Cloud School, if it had followed the prescribed order, it would have been only one step away from becoming a venerable sovereign. At that time, the Red Cloud School would have risen along with the tide and become a great force. If it continued to develop, it might have been able to catch up with the Dowell School. Unfortunately, because of a careless mistake, the Dowell School attacked the Red Cloud School in advance. Not only did the plan fail, but the whole school was destroyed. It was not hard to imagine the effect of the rise and fall of luck. It was so for venerable emperors, not to mention other people. Fortunately, Fang Qingshan was lucky. He had broken through the peak of the immortal realm and become a true disciple. He had won first place in the inter-disciple competition and was supported by the luck of the school. It would have been even better if he had obtained the purple immortal title in the title tower. But he was different from others. He had the all-heaven chessboard, a treasure of luck, so his luck was always at the peak. When it comes, heaven and earth will help me. Luck will help me. Good fortune will be with me. Fang Qingshan shouted. The all-heaven chessboard flew out and supported his body. All of a sudden, Fang Qingshan's body shuddered. He could feel an invisible power surging through the void into his body endlessly. At this moment, Fang Qingshan felt an unprecedented sense of power, as if all the shackles of the world around him had disappeared. He felt as if he could do whatever he wanted. His domineering aura leaked out, and with a shake of his body, the treasures of heaven and earth automatically came to him. Endless divine light burst out from Fang Qingshan's body. At this moment, he was like a lighthouse in the dark, a hope in despair. He had infinite charm and attracted the treasures of the world. This was not an illusion. As Fang Qingshan's merits, luck, and good fortune spread out, the shooting stars in the star-picking tower could not help but stop, as if they were attracted. Although these spiritual treasures did not have artifact spirits, they all had their own intelligence. It was common for them to seek good fortune and avoid calamity. The host chose the treasure, and the treasure chose its master. People could cultivate, and treasures could also evolve. All he wanted was fame and fortune. Without fame and fortune, they would naturally be indifferent, but with fame and fortune, they would naturally scramble for it. In the blink of an eye, the stars in the sky trembled, and many meteors seemed to want to throw themselves into his arms. The first to fall was a star that looked like a book. However, a beam of starlight traversed the heavens and the earth, arriving in an instant. It was divided into yin and yang, the 5 elements, and the dragon and phoenix accompanied it. Vaguely, one could see a Taoist with a blurry face sitting cross-legged. His body was enshrouded in purple mist. His meridians were operating, and his mana was surging. His eyes were deep, and countless scriptures were faintly discernible as he observed the heavens. There was a kind of eternally unchanging, a kind of profoundness that was profound and profound. This item was a Taoist book. With just a glance, one's mind seemed to be filled with large sections of profound Taoist charm. It was a level 3 Taoist. Moreover, this item was different from the level 3 Taoist book in the Great Path Palace. This item was an illusion left behind by a person who had cultivated this method to the realm of returning to simplicity. Comprehension was twice the result with half the effort. It was as if someone was guiding it. This item was not the only one. In fact, many treasures wanted to rush over. However, due to the pressure of the level, the lower-grade treasures were all suppressed by the higher-grade treasures. Apart from this item, there were 3 other treasures that could really come to Fang Qingshan's side. One of them was a staircase. This was a spiritual treasure called the stepping ladder. Although it was not a level 3 treasure, it was similar to the full moon blade of Heaven's Wrath and the Blue Sea Heart Ruler. It had the foundation of a level 3 treasure. This item had 49 levels. Once it was taken out, one could see countless strange images flashing and intersecting, changing constantly. There were goddesses dancing in the air, deities laughing and chatting. There were the sun, moon, and stars changing. When one stood on the staircase, the enemy could not attack them at all. It was like Fang Qingshan's universal reincarnation chess mystique. It was as if one stood in the gap between space and time. Moreover, this item was not only unparalleled in defense, but it could also enhance one's attack. When one stood on the staircase and used mystiques and battle techniques, there would be additional enhancements, and their power would increase by several levels. There was also a ring of Tao. On the ring, there were countless pictures circulating. There were pictures of the Sword Emperor of the Storm lecturing about the Tao, the evolution of heaven and earth, and the manifestation of the great Tao. Each picture was a Tao diagram that contained the truths of heaven and earth, and they contained a profound aura of the great Tao. This ring was like an ornament. It could not attack or defend, but it could assist one's cultivation. It could increase one's cultivation speed by 3 to 5 times, and there was no danger of chi deviation. It could even strengthen the nomological laws of the great Tao and raise the limits of the human body. Compared to the stepping ladder, this item was clearly more valuable. After all, offensive and defensive treasures were common, but those that could assist one's cultivation were rare. The most important thing was the Tao. The last item was not a spiritual treasure, nor was it a book. It was a material, the Stone of 3 Lives. This item was most commonly found in places like the reincarnation underworld or the Blood Sea. There was such a stone in the reincarnation cycle of Fang Qingshan's World Tree clone. However, just like the Zhaixing Lu before him and the Zhaixing Lu in the Timeless Arc, the grade was completely different. It was unknown if this Stone of 3 Lives was especially compatible with Fang Qingshan's reincarnation nomological laws, so it was of a very high grade. It was at the 3rd level, even higher than the first book of Tao. Nurtured by heaven and earth, it contained the power of the past, present, and future 3 lifetimes. It could analyze fate, control space-time, and command the 3 lifetimes. If it fell into the hands of someone who cultivated in the nomological laws of reincarnation, life, and death, its effect would be even greater than the previous ring of Tao. Moreover, this item could not only assist in cultivation, but as a material, once it was refined into a spiritual treasure, its power would be unparalleled. If one could refine a supreme treasure like the Book of Life and Death, as long as one's name was engraved on it, as long as one's cultivation was not too much higher than the spiritual treasure itself, and there was no supreme treasure to conceal the aura, one could completely grasp any person's past, present, and future life. It was very terrifying. Whoosh! Fang Qingshan looked at the few treasures that had automatically come to him and frowned slightly. It was not that these treasures were of low value. Which of the treasures that had been collected here were weak? However, it was somewhat different from what Fang Qingshan had expected. Other than the Stone of 3 Lives and the first book of Tao, which were at the 3rd level, the other 2 spiritual treasures were at the 2nd level, although they had a foundation of the 3rd level. In the past, Fang Qingshan would have been overjoyed by these items. However, times had changed. Now, it was difficult to satisfy his desires and desires. Chapter 1487. It wasn't that Fang Qingshan was greedy, but it was a matter of vision and realm. Just like how dragons didn't live with snakes and immortals didn't gather with humans, when their levels were different, they naturally couldn't talk together. before the inner disciple competition. If Fang Qingshan could obtain these things, he would be smiling even if he was asleep. However, after the inner disciple competition, he not only consolidated his cultivation, but also advanced to the next level, breaking through the peak of the immortal realm, and was only one step away from the Divine Emperor realm. Moreover, in the Crimson Heaven realm, he fought with the Divine Emperor and obtained a level 3 spiritual root, a top-notch level 2 treasure, and a level 3 Tao book. During the ranking competition, almost everyone had a level 3 base level 2 treasure and even level 4 treasure, all kinds of top-notch magic skills, and even the blood essence of a peak beast emperor, the imprint of a venerable emperor, and even a real level 4 treasure. After seeing these things, when he turned around and looked at the things in front of him, they were completely different. It wasn't that he looked down on them, but there was no more surprise. After all, what was this place? This was the Tao Will Sec's secret vault, which had 4 to 5 levels of the Tao Will Sec's foundation in addition to the level 4 treasure. Even venerable emperors couldn't take this place lightly. Therefore, at the beginning, Fang Qingshan had high expectations. When expectations didn't match reality, disappointment and dissatisfaction arose spontaneously. First of all, the level 3 Tao book with enlightenment was good, but it was only good. After all, for Fang Qingshan, his fundamental cultivation was the all-heaven Tao validation technique, and other cultivation methods could only be used as reference, and he couldn't change them. Therefore, the value of the Tao book was greatly reduced. After all, he didn't need just 1 or 2 Tao books, but many. Moreover, he could exchange for them at the Great Doctrine Palace with his Tao insight points, so wasting a slot was obviously not worth it. As for the remaining treasures, the stairs were considered a defensive magic treasure. If he had obtained it before, Fang Qingshan would have thought it was good. At least he wouldn't have needed to integrate the Red Lotus of Fire into the Timeless Arkansas. After all, this treasure was very compatible with the Great Path of Mosquito Dauren. But now it was no longer necessary. Fuse it into the Timeless Arkansas. It would be tasteless to eat it, but a pity to discard it. Within the Timeless Ark, its defense was sufficient. His main body was prepared to fuse with the level 3 spiritual root, the Lotus of Bliss. The Eternal Divine Furnace unit had the Red Lotus of Hellfire, the Bell of Chaos, the Cauldron of Heaven and Earth, and the Great Void God armor. Although the Timeless Ark had many Divine Furnace units, they couldn't afford to waste them. As for Fang Qingshan and the other two, Fang Qingshan could summon the Timeless Ark and a unit weapon at any time. He also had the Mirror of Reincarnation, which could attack and defend. The quality of the treasure was more important than the quantity, so he didn't need it at all. The Mosquito Taoist needed a defensive magic treasure, but it was not compatible with his nature. The World Tree clone needed it because its cultivation was too low. So, just like the previous Tao book, it wasn't that it wasn't good, but it wasn't necessary at the moment. The benefits couldn't be maximized, and the effects weren't the best. It was a bit of a waste to take it. As for the heart-melting ring, it was actually a top-grade cultivation equipment that could assist in comprehending the Tao. But in this aspect, Fang Qingshan didn't lack anything. Not to mention the eternal blessing of the eternal heavenly ship, just the primordial essence spirit liquid, the upgraded immortal spirit liquid, the second-grade Bodhi wood, and so on were only the icing on the cake. For Fang Qingshan, choosing things naturally had to maximize the benefits. It could either help him or Mosquito Dauren greatly improve the cultivation of the World Tree clone, or it could be integrated into the Timeless Ark, speeding up the breakthrough of the Timeless Arkansas. If he couldn't do either, then sorry. It wasn't something that Fang Qingshan needed. On the other hand, the Stone of Three Lives was good. If it was integrated with a natal spiritual treasure, it could greatly improve the treasure's grade. If it was integrated with the Gourd of Life and Death, the Bell of Chaos, the Bridge of Permitha, the Passing Water Lamp, and so on in the Timeless Ark, it would have the same effect. However, the natal spiritual treasure could improve with Fang Qingshan's cultivation, and the other treasures could also improve with the advancement of the Timeless Arkansas. Still, it wasn't necessary. Therefore, none of them could reach Fang Qingshan's goal. It seems that relying on luck to communicate with the underworld and let the treasure come to me doesn't seem very good. Fang Qingshan sighed. In fact, Fang Qingshan also knew that this might be related to the strength of his luck. Although Fang Qingshan's luck wasn't weak, and he had the all-heaven chessboard, his identity and cultivation were limited. He was only in the immortal realm, a true disciple of the Tao Will sect, and he was also the owner of the timeless Arkansas. Otherwise, treasures like the Stone of Three Lives wouldn't have been attracted. Most of the treasures here were grade 3 and not ordinary ones. Therefore, it was obviously unrealistic to rely on his luck and cultivation to attract the real treasures. Unless he broke through to the God Emperor realm and became a true disciple, it was possible. After all, a grade 3 treasure was the standard for a God Emperor, and only a God Emperor could truly unleash the power of a grade 3 treasure. Although a true disciple was still a disciple, it was different, especially the top 10 true disciples, who were the reserves of the Tao Will sect's upper echelons. The sect master was the successor of an elder with real power, and it was the same as the heir of a feudal dynasty. Unfortunately, he wasn't one yet. What should I do now? Thousands of thoughts flashed through Fang Qingshan's mind. He couldn't force it, nor could he rely on luck. He seemed to have fallen into a dead end. Could it be that I can only choose from these treasures? Looking at the treasures in front of him, Fang Qingshan was a little annoyed. It was rare for him to come here, and even a peak God Emperor couldn't come to the Tao Will sect's secret vault. If this was all he gained, it would be worse than what he had gained in the Scarlet Firmament sect. This was something Fang Qingshan couldn't accept. But what could he do if he couldn't accept it? For a moment, Fang Qingshan couldn't help but fall into an awkward situation. Just as Fang Qingshan was hesitating, outside the Zhaixing Lu, the grade 4 treasure spirit patriarch who was guarding the Zhaixing Lu exclaimed, "What's wrong with this kid? Is he still not satisfied?" After muttering to himself, he looked at the treasures beside Fang Qingshan and raised his eyebrows. Compared to that kid, it's indeed a little lacking. No wonder he's not satisfied. However, that kid is the descendant of the kid from the Pang family. With his guidance, this kid is already doing well on his own. Should I help him? Although obtaining treasures from the Zhaixing Lu depended entirely on luck and fate, was there a shortcut to success? There was. After all, nothing in this world was absolute. When Pang Bo obtained the treasures, he had received guidance from his patriarch. Hence, the 3 treasures he obtained were all grade 3 treasures. That was why the old man said that Fang Qingshan was a little lacking. Since the patriarch of Pang Bo's family could interfere, the old man, who was guarding the Zhaixing Lu, could naturally do the same. Even if he didn't let Fang Qingshan obtain a pinnacle grade 3 treasure, it wouldn't be a problem to raise it by 1 or 2 grades. Chapter 1488. The old man was once the treasure of the venerable Emperor Patriarch. Just this alone was enough to elevate his status infinitely. Even a boy by Hongjuan's side could become the master of the 3 realms, let alone him. Moreover, the old man didn't just rely on his background. He himself was also a level 4 treasure. Therefore, his authority in the Tao Will sect was second only to the sect master. If he really had the heart to help Fang Qingshan, it would not have been a difficult task. However, the difficulty was secondary. The key was that the old man and Fang Qingshan weren't related at all. Moreover, guarding the Zhaixing Lu required fairness. Therefore, the old man was a little hesitant. It didn't matter whether he helped or not. It was his duty not to help. Let's help him. The old man thought about it and decided to help. After all, although the secret vault was a foundation, it was dead. It would be best for the Tao Will sect if the foundation was completely transformed into real strength. As someone who had the opportunity to obtain treasures from the secret vault when he reached the immortal realm, it wouldn't be a problem for Fang Qingshan to show some favoritism. Fang Qingshan didn't know what the old man was thinking. If he knew that the old man was about to help him, he would probably be overjoyed. After all, not to mention the 3 life stone and the Tao book The Dao Rune Ring and the Dao Step are level 3 treasures or even middle grade level 3 treasures. However, just as Fang Qingshan was hesitating and the old man was about to take action, another change happened. Host, let me try. Maybe there will be some changes. At this moment, a light condensed beside Fang Qingshan, and the Thunder Emperor suddenly appeared. Seeing the Thunder Emperor suddenly appear, Fang Qingshan was so nervous that he didn't jump in fright. After all, the Thunder Emperor would normally stay in the eternal heavenly vessel to control it. Aside from battles, and when the eternal heavenly vessel was leveling up, he would not be very active. This time around, he had actually come out on his own and even recommended himself. Fang Qingshan could not help but be surprised. Not bad. The Thunder Emperor nodded. The reason why he ran out was actually very simple. It was just for profit. He knew that Fang Qingshan's selection this time was mainly to fill in the Timeless Ark's Divine Furnace unit. The better the treasure, the more benefits the Timeless Ark would receive. As the Eternal Spirit, his status naturally rose as well. However, what he could choose from now was obviously not satisfactory. To him, he naturally had to display his subjective initiative and maximize the benefits. What do you have in mind? After coming back to his senses, Fang Qingshan asked without thinking too much. Release the aura of origin, the Thunder Emperor said in a deep voice. He was the spirit of the Timeless Ark, and Fang Qingshan was the master of the Timeless Arkansas. As long as there were no special circumstances, he could share Fang Qingshan's memories. Therefore, he knew how to obtain treasures from the Zhaixing Lu. Moreover, there was a Zhaixing Lu pagoda in the Timeless Ark, so he was naturally familiar with the rules. Fate, power. This was the most conventional and effective method. Fang Qingshan's fate, and power were insufficient, but the eternal Taoist aura of the Timeless Ark might be able to give a try. What do you mean? Fang Qingshan seemed to have some understanding of the Thunder Emperor's thoughts. That's right. The Thunder Emperor nodded affirmatively. Since he wanted to obtain better treasures from the Zhaixing Lu, he needed fate. What could be more attractive than the eternal Taoist aura? Let's give it a try. Fang Qingshan did not know whether it would work or not. However, he nodded with the mentality of making a Hail Mary attempt. When the Thunder Emperor heard this, he closed his eyes. The next moment, a lotus seed bloomed on top of his head. This was the core component of the Timeless Arkansas. In an instant, the lotus seed germinated, grew, and petals bloomed one by one. A mystical green lotus occupied the center of his head, surrounded by endless primordial violet qi, the origin of the great Tao. On the green lotus, an eternal Taoist aura was naturally emitted. A beam of green divine light that connected the heavens and the earth with an eternal Taoist aura naturally emitted, enveloping the entire Zhaixing Lu. An incomparably intimate, deep, mysterious, and intoxicating aura quickly spread out. It was as if he had suddenly returned to his mother's embrace, and his entire body and mind were completely relaxed. This was an indescribable aura. Compared to fate, merit, and great Tao, this feeling was even more intoxicating. Compared to the so-called opium poppy and opium, no, even comparing them to it was a form of humiliation. This was the aura of the everlasting lotus contained in the eternal lotus seed. Eternal Taoist aura. Although it was not as good as the eternal green lotus that Fang Qingshan had once personally encountered, it was 10 times, no, more than 100 times richer than the eternal green lotus hidden in his bone marrow. The old man, who was about to attack, was caught off guard by this change. The moment the eternal Taoist aura was emitted, his whole body trembled, and he stood up immediately. With a flash, he appeared in Zhaixing Lu, the everlasting lotus, the eternal Taoist aura. This is the great Tao, and it has transcended the way of venerable emperors. Seeing the everlasting lotus above the Thunder Emperor's head, the old man muttered to himself, as if he had been bewitched. If it was not for the remaining clarity in his heart, he would have reached out to grab it. Actually, the old man could not be blamed for this. As long as it was a cultivator, who wouldn't want the eternal green lotus? This was especially so for venerable emperors and level 4 supreme treasures. It was even more attractive. It was like a person who was extremely thirsty in a dry desert had suddenly encountered a clear spring. It was like a ship that had been lost in the sea had suddenly found its way back. It was like a ray of light had suddenly appeared in the endless night. After all, in all the realms and boundless void, the everlasting lotus of the timeless ark was the only publicly known existence that had transcended the venerable emperor level. Regardless of whether it was in the river of time and space, the sacred Buddha tribe, the primordial fairy tribe, or the heavenly evil tribe, none of the methods recorded in the ancient records have been verified. If the timeless ark was not unique, and even venerable emperors could not deduce the traces of the lotus seed, the owner of the timeless ark would probably be extinct by now. Therefore, as a level 4 supreme treasure, how could the old man not be excited when he sensed the aura of the everlasting lotus? What a pity, what a pity! However, this situation only lasted for a moment, and he came back to his senses, because the old man had already seen that this was not the real everlasting lotus. The eternal Taoist aura was just a hidden part of the eternal lotus seed of the timeless Arkansas. He had just been shocked by this similar aura, so he did not notice it. However, although the old man had come back to his senses, he was just an old man. After all, he was a level 4 supreme treasure, and his cultivation level and vision were high enough. Looks like he doesn't need my help. The old man smiled. He moved his body and left the star-picking tower. He returned to the door and slept soundly. Chapter 1489. As a level 4 supreme treasure, the old man reacted quickly. He knew that the eternal lotus seed did not contain the true eternal way rhyme. Most importantly, he was only at the supreme level, so it was not attractive to him. But it was different for the other treasures. If the eternal way rhyme was a dragon, then the old man was a dragon, a Mahayana, and the other treasures were snakes, pythons, golden cores, and nascent souls. Their attractiveness was naturally not the same. Buzz. At this moment, all the stars in the Zhaixing Lu started shaking, including the Zhaixing Lu itself. It was as if the Zhoutian star formation had been activated. The Buddha said that all beings were equal, and there was no distinction between them. But this was obviously unrealistic. In the mortal world, there were emperors, generals, ministers, and ordinary people. In the cultivation world, each realm was a different level. Not just living beings, but spirit treasures, spiritual items, and anything with intelligence were the same. High-level beings naturally had an absolute suppression and attraction to low-level beings. For example, dragons naturally had an absolute suppression on snakes and scale beings. At the same time, snakes, dragons, turtles, and other scale beings would definitely transform if they obtained the blood essence of a true dragon. Because of this, sensing the aura of the everlasting lotus and the eternal way rhyme, all beings in the Zhaixing Lu were shocked. After all, the everlasting lotus was a supreme being above all beings in the universe. With its blessing, the timeless ark could smoothly cultivate to the Emperor Venerable realm. But the supreme treasures in the Zhaixing Lu had not even reached level 4, so the shaking was very intense. First, they were submitting to a higher level being. Second, they wanted to take advantage of it. If they could obtain a trace of the eternal way rhyme, even a level 3 supreme treasure would be greatly beneficial. Previously, when Feng Qingshan had released the fate, it had only affected a small area. A small portion of the low-level existences had let out faint cries of contention and wanted to throw themselves at him. But now almost 99% of the treasures were rushing to it. Like birds flying into the woods, moths flying into the fire, carps crossing the river. No words could describe the scene in front of them. Feng Qingshan's face was filled with astonishment at first, and then he was overjoyed. He didn't expect that he would actually succeed. Just like the old man, the level 3 supreme treasures regained their senses after the initial shock. They knew that the eternal Taoist rhyme before them was just a facade, and they were happy for nothing. Therefore, they didn't throw themselves at him. However, just the fact that they were in front of him was enough to make Feng Qingshan smile. Good, good. The heavens are really helping me. At this moment, Fang Qingshan's entire person was buried in a sea of treasures. All sorts of rare treasures, spiritual treasures of the heavens and earth, Tao books, and Tao arts were within his reach. Moreover, those that were close to his body were all peak existences. All of them were mid to upper grade, level 3 treasures. Previously, the Stone of 3 Lives and the Taoist book were all pushed to the periphery. However, at this moment, Fang Qingshan did not care about any of them. At this moment, he had already set his sights on the completely motionless treasures. It wasn't that he was biting off more than he could chew and didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, but times had changed. Although he did not have the power to suppress spirit treasures, he had the ability to deal with them. The Coin of Treasure Fall. Yes, Fang Qingshan was prepared to use the Coin of Treasure Fall. This item was already of intermediate grade level 2. Coupled with the support of the Timeless Arc and the Universal Chessboard, it would not be a problem for it to drop a level 3 treasure. Of course, this was also because these level 3 treasures were ownerless and unactivated. The power of a treasure that was activated by someone and not activated by someone were two completely different things. As for why he didn't think of using this treasure earlier, it wasn't that Fang Qingshan didn't want to use it, but it was completely useless. As mentioned earlier, although he could see all sorts of treasures in the stars, what he saw might not be real. What he saw could be an illusion or an illusion. Even if he were to use the Coin of Treasure Fall, he should have first picked a target. If he didn't even pick a target and blindly played his piece, there would be no more regrets. Zhaixing Liu would not give him a chance to regret. If it was a level 3 treasure that was useful to him, then it would be fine. If it was a level 2 treasure that was useless to him, then he would really be out of luck. However, things were different now. Because of the everlasting lotus and the eternal Taoist aura, almost all the treasures below level 3 had been attracted to Fang Qingshan's side. The ones that did not move were obviously the most elite ones. Any one of these treasures would at least be an upper level 3. A top level 3 treasure would definitely not be a loss. Fang Qingshan forcefully suppressed his excitement. His trembling body did not act rashly and lose his sense of propriety. To be more beneficial to himself, Fang Qingshan first activated the Timeless Arc and the river diagram of the ancient book to deduce which treasures in the sky were more suitable for him. As for why he didn't do this earlier, it was the same reason as the Coin of Treasure Fall. Now, even if something went wrong, it would still be an upper level 3 and above. It would not be a loss. Hiss, roar. Following the neigh of a horse and the cry of a tortoise, a divination appeared. A mysterious aura flew out from the river diagram of the ancient book and circled around Fang Qingshan. Then it flew towards the sky, towards a certain place in the depths of the stars. Let's go. Seeing this, Fang Qingshan's heart leaped with joy. He moved his feet and hurriedly followed the aura in front of him. This flight lasted for a few minutes. The starry sky not far away suddenly burst with a dazzling light. The starry sky wriggled, and a huge ball of light gradually appeared in front of Fang Qingshan. The sphere of light was extremely large and shone brighter than anything else. Vaguely, one could see what seemed to be a giant skeleton within the sphere of light. It gave off an ancient and majestic aura. Even though it was sealed, Fang Qingshan still shuddered. He felt like he was facing the cultivation imparting Elder Zhuvijin, or the elder of many treasures, Qian Duo. Peak God Emperor. Obviously, this skeleton was originally a Peak God Emperor. After his death, his flesh and blood were destroyed, leaving behind this skeleton. This was much more important and precious than the drop of blood essence from DE. It was definitely not inferior to a grade 3 treasure. Most importantly, this item could not only be used as a material for refining tools. It could also be fused with the corpse of the Chaos Demon God in the Timeless Arkansas. More importantly, it could assist in cultivation. After all, when one cultivated to the God Emperor realm, one's cultivation base and Taoist rhyme had already been cultivated to the bones. It was like the restriction of the Taoist rhyme contained in the heavens and earth spiritual treasures. Refining the skeleton was equivalent to comprehending the Taoist rune law. It could speed up cultivation, comprehend Taoist rhyme, and save time and energy. The reason why the river diagram of the ancient book led Fang Qingshan to this item was because the original body of this skeleton cultivated the law of reincarnation. Chapter 1490. This skeleton could be used as a spiritual material to refine treasures. Or, according to Fang Qingshan's plan, he could use it as a dragon bone and integrate it into the timeless arc itself. This would greatly enhance the foundation of the timeless Arkansas. However, in the end, the grade of this item was too high, especially compared to the current timeless Arkansas. Even if he wanted to integrate it, he would have to wait until the next time the timeless arc leveled up. Otherwise, Fang Qingshan would have long wanted to use this item to replace the Elysium Lotus. Although the Elysium Lotus could not compare to this item in terms of grade, compared to spiritual materials, spiritual roots were obviously more sustainable. They could continuously cultivate new treasures of heaven and earth, such as lotus seeds, lotus flowers, and so on. Integrating it into the timeless arc was not a reckless waste of resources, but it was like killing the goose that laid the golden eggs. It was a pity. If there was no other way, then it would be fine. Now that there was a substitute, naturally, it would be replaced immediately. Of course, the skeleton could also be used as a spiritual treasure of heaven and earth, or as an edible treasure of heaven and earth. This was because the skeleton was engraved with the lifetime understanding of the reincarnation great path of a big shot who had cultivated to the peak of the God-Emperor realm. After refining these Tao runes and laws, it could not be said that he had obtained the inheritance of this big shot, but it was close. Good. Looking at this item, Fang Qingshan could not help but exclaim out in admiration. This was a great treasure. One of them was equivalent to two of them. Not only could it help him with his cultivation, it could also be used to craft treasures. This was killing two birds with one stone. After confirming that this was the treasure he needed, Fang Qingshan made a prompt decision to act. Suppress. Fang Qingshan first took out the timeless Arkansas. Almost as soon as he thought about it, he immediately saw the dazzling golden timeless arc in his body, which was like a precious jade, suddenly tremble, and endless waves were set off in his sea of consciousness. The entire timeless arc, following a mysterious connection, just flashed and directly disappeared. Rumble. Almost at the same time, an indescribable pressure suddenly spread out from the space above Fang Qingshan's head. It swept out in all directions like a tidal wave. Within that pressure, there was an eternal aura, as if it had existed for eternity and would never be extinguished. If it was during normal times or in other places, under this aura, it would probably cause an uproar. Unfortunately, they were in the Jiaxing Tower and deep in space, surrounded by peak level 3 monsters, far beyond the timeless arc's current level. Most importantly, it had already been disturbed by the eternal Taoist aura. Hence, it was completely indifferent to the aura of the timeless Arkansas. In this regard, Fang Qingshan did not care at all. If there was a riot, then he would suffer. After all, suppressing a single treasure was already a little difficult. If everyone were to fight for it together, his plan would probably fall short of success. As he took out the timeless arc, Fang Qingshan used the same trick again. He strengthened the all-heavens chessboard and even contributed his own dermic powers. Just like that, an aura that far exceeded that of the challenge tournament swept out. Rumble. The surrounding space was distorted, forming an endless pressure that pressed down on the skeleton. The expected resistance happened. A wave of pressure that was not weak at all, and even stronger, exploded from the skeleton. If not for the fact that Fang Qingshan trusted the Tao, Will sect, and knew that this was the Jiaxing Tower, and that there was an old monster guarding outside, and that he did not sense any signs of life or even spirituality from the skeleton, he would have thought that the skeleton had come to life. Although it was not at its peak, it still had absolute power. It forcefully held up the timeless arc, making it impossible for him to fall. The old man, who had just laid down, was awakened by the movement in the Jiaxing Tower. He scanned with his primordial spirit and immediately understood what was going on. He could not help but shake his head. A man who is never content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. He is still too young and needs to be polished. He originally had a good impression of Feng Shan, whether it was because of the treasures that his providence attracted, the timeless ark, or the everlasting lotus. However, at this moment, his impression of Yifu Tian was greatly diminished when he saw that Yifu Tian actually wanted to collect a top-notch level 3 treasure. It was important to know one's own limitations. Only by understanding oneself and one's heart, not biting off more than one could chew and not belittle oneself, could one do as one wished and be free. Obviously, in the old man's opinion, Feng Shan was overestimating himself and getting carried away by collecting a top-notch level 3 treasure. In his opinion, Feng Shan should have hurriedly chosen the superior grade level 3 treasures that had been deceived by the eternal Tao runes instead of taking the risk to collect a top-notch level 3 treasure. This was likely to cause him to fail at the last step. In the end, all his efforts would be in vain. Unfortunately, the old man still did not understand Feng Shan. If it was someone else, they would naturally be helpless. However, Feng Shan was not an ordinary person. Since he dared to do this, he naturally had his reasons. Moreover, a soldier who did not want to be a general was not a good soldier. There was a higher grade treasure in front of him, and he had the chance to collect it, but he was indifferent. This was clearly not Feng Shan's personality. Treasure fall coin go. As Feng Shan gave the order, a bronze coin with a pair of wings on its back flew out. On one side of the bronze coin, there were all kinds of mysterious Tao runes engraved, exuding an eternal aura, and the words treasure fall were written on it. On the other side, there were the surging mortal world engraved. There were mortals, emperors, generals, ministers, immortals, saints, Buddhas, demons, and ghosts, and the words gods were written on it. Fall! As Feng Shan pointed from afar, the treasure fall coin flew over in a seemingly slow but actually urgent manner, sticking to the skeleton. Following that, 2 chains of laws materialized and shackled him with a snap. The first was the law of fall, which could bring down all spiritual objects in the world. This was also the original power of the treasure fall coin, and it was the ultimate technique that made it famous. Back then, it had relied on this technique to shine brilliantly during the investiture of the gods. The second was the law of money. Money could communicate with the gods, and there was nothing that money could not solve. This was because after Feng Shan developed and refined the godhood coin, he had activated the innate ability of money. It was like an innate ability. 1. The skeleton, which had been in a deadlock and even had a slight upper hand, was immediately like a punctured balloon when the treasure fall coin stuck to it, and it instantly shriveled. After holding on for a moment, it seemed to be swept back by the treasure fall coin. What a good treasure, what a good treasure. This old man has underestimated him. The old man, who had already shook his head and laid back down, was once again startled awake. Clearly, Feng Shan had once again exceeded his expectations. He had never thought that Feng Shan would actually have a treasure like the treasure fall coin. This item was truly blessed by nature when it came to collecting treasures. In the past, he could only collect spirit treasures that were not higher than his own grade, and he could not collect weapons. However, after fusing it with the timeless ark, whether it was because of the eternal Taoist rhyme or because of the godhood coin, it had undergone an earth-shattering change. Not to mention that it was not higher than the treasure fall coin's grade. It would not be a problem even if it was a grade higher than his. Furthermore, it was not limited to spirit treasures, and there were almost no restrictions. Chapter 1491. The power of the treasure fall coin was unparalleled. However, under normal circumstances, Feng Shan did not use it much. There were 2 reasons. One was that he could not use it, and the other was that he did not want to use it. He did not use it because he could basically deal with the opponents he was facing, such as the Divine Emperor in the Crimson Heaven Realm and Pangbo. For opponents he could not deal with, the treasure fall coin was useless. He didn't want to use it because this treasure was no longer just a rare treasure. It was also the mother of all the money in his body. If this thing was seriously damaged, it would affect the financial system of the ruined city, and it would affect everything. However, it did not mean that he could not use it. Especially in a special occasion like this, it was the last straw that broke the camel's back when it was time to decide the winner. Today was probably the most shocking day in the old man's life. First, Fong Qingshan could attract a treasure like the Stone of 3 Lives with his luck. Then, the appearance of the eternal Tao rhyme almost made him lose his composure. Then, Fong Qingshan did not eat the meat in his bowl, which made him very disappointed. Unexpectedly, in the blink of an eye, he took out an exotic treasure like the Treasure Fall coin and took a peak level 3 supreme treasure. It was really an eye-opener for him. However, he didn't have the time to be shocked now, because if it were to continue according to this course of events, then there would be a second, and then there would be a third, and Fong Qingshan would be able to obtain 3 top-rate treasures. The old man's brain suddenly stopped working. Should I stop them, or should I just let them be? If he stopped him, it would be unfair. After all, he was not playing tricks. He relied on his own ability. Moreover, he did not care about Pang Bo's tricks, but now he was teaching Fong Qingshan a lesson. Wasn't this bullying a newcomer without a backer? It would also be unfair. Although Fong Qingshan might not be able to find out if he interfered now, he still couldn't get past his conscience. It was also inappropriate to say that they just let it be. The treasures in the secret vault were accumulated by generations of Dao Will Sect's disciples. Even a peak divine emperor couldn't enter at once. However, Fong Qingshan wanted to take away 3 top-notch treasures as soon as he came. Not to mention others, even the old man felt a little uncomfortable. Forget it. Since I didn't help him earlier, I don't have the face to stop him now. Let nature take its course. In the end, we should keep the goodies within the family. After thinking about it, the old man decided not to bother anymore. He finally understood that the Tao gave birth to all things, and everything had its own destiny. Their existence was reasonable. Since Fong Qingshan was able to do this, how could he know that it was not predestined? Furthermore, the treasure belonged to the Tao Will Sect. Even if it fell into Fong Qingshan's hands, it would still belong to the Tao Will Sect. The only difference was the right to use it. In any case, he had no use for it. It was all for the sake of training his disciple. If he gave it today, he might get something in the future. Wasn't this how the sect and its disciples interacted? Today, I nurtured you, and in the future, you would nurture me. Good. What Fong Qingshan didn't know was that the old man had almost ruined his plans. Seeing that the treasure had finally fallen into his hands, Fong Qingshan's face lit up with joy, and he said good thrice. Initially, he had only wanted to give it a try. He did not expect to receive such a huge surprise in the end. In the past, he did not even have many second-level treasures, let alone third-level treasures. He had even envied Yang Mei for having the Chaos Bead. In the Crimson Firmament realm, he had even been overjoyed by a third-level spirit root, the Elysium Lotus. During the arena battles, he had been envious of Di, Emperor Lu, Shangwan Jin, Qin Shuriwei, Zheng Xian, Jiang Shan, and the others who had all sorts of third-level and fourth-level treasures. However, there was no need for that now. Third-level treasures, and pinnacle ones at that, were comparable to the Chaos Bead, the Creation Jade Plate, the Heaven-Splitting Axe, and the Creation Green Lotus at their peak. Even a Pinnacle God Emperor would not be so rich. If he were to fuse all 3 treasures into the Timeless Ark, at the thought of this, Fong Qingshan shuddered. What kind of scene would that be? Just thinking about it, Lin Fan could imagine the feeling of slaughtering everyone in his path. By then, how boundless would the eternal blessing be? Not to mention perfecting the Divine Emperor chapter, his cultivation base would probably rise by a whole realm, just like what he did this time. For a moment, Fong Qingshan could not help but be fascinated. Of course, he quickly came back to his senses. The idea was good, but it was a pity that it was not realistic. After all, the Timeless Ark was only at the Supreme Being grade. Even if it was mutated, it was still far from a pinnacle third-level treasure. As the saying went, Great men were not good men. Fusing treasures that were too good would break the balance. This might not be a good thing. Why did extreme hardness give birth to softness? Extreme yang give birth to yin, the transformation of life and death, and the rotation of the five elements. Wasn't it just balance? Therefore, fusing a pinnacle third-level treasure now was a huge mistake. This was also why Fang Qingshan did not think of using the skeleton to replace the Lotus of Bliss. The reason was the same. However, even if it could not be fused, it was still a foundation. Moreover, even if it could not be fused now, wouldn't it be fine the next time the Timeless Arc advanced? This could be considered as preparing for a rainy day. Otherwise, even if the Timeless Arc advanced and its cultivation increased, it would not be easy to find such a high-quality pinnacle third-level treasure. Putting all these aside, after obtaining the skeleton of a pinnacle god emperor, a god emperor that cultivated the transmigration law, Fang Qingshan continued to let the Thunder Emperor use the river diagram of the ancient book to deduce treasures that were suitable for him. Using the same old trick, he copied it exactly the same way. Soon, Fang Qingshan decided on the other two treasures. It was the Timeless Arc that first deterred and the Treasure Fall coin that launched a sneak attack. Soon, the two treasures were kept in his bag. This time, the two treasures were neither spirit treasures nor spiritual roots. The first one was a principle, a segment of the Great Way Source Law called the Amplification Law. It seemed to have been cut off by someone. Although this principle was not as famous as the principles of fate, cause and effect, space-time, yin-yang, or the five elements, its practical effect was really good. The Amplification Law, as the name suggested, was a principle that could increase one's cultivation. Although it was only a temporary increase, it had a very significant effect on increasing one's combat power, especially in decisive battles. It could have the effect of stabilizing the situation in one fell swoop. Generally speaking, heavenly demon disintegration technique, living with the heavens and earth, burning blood technique, sacrifice technique, and so on were all types of amplification. However, these methods, divine powers, battle skills, and secret techniques all had great limitations, such as self-mutilation or even lifespan. Anyway, one would not use them unless it was a desperate situation. If one used them, even if he did not die, he would lose half his life. However, the Amplification Law was different. It could be used by anyone below the Emperor Venerable realm, regardless of cultivation. As long as one's body could withstand it, one could continue to improve. Chapter 1492. Fang Qingshan was very happy to get the amplification rule. For one thing, the effect of this thing had no other drawbacks. It didn't have too many requirements. It didn't matter if you were an origin, an immortal, or divine emperor. Generally speaking, the improvement of one's combat power could cross at least one great realm, and there wouldn't be many sequelae. At most, one would need to take a good rest after the battle. But compared to other methods of amplification, this was undoubtedly much better. As for the amplification rule, there would be an upper limit, but it was limited to those below the Venerable Emperor level. Not to mention that Fang Qingshan's current cultivation was far from the Venerable Emperor level. Even if he had reached it, who knew if this thing wouldn't level up with the upgrade of the Timeless Arc and break through the bottleneck. Yes, Fang Qingshan was going to integrate this thing into the Timeless Arc, but not now. Now in the Timeless Arc, there were various unit weapons for defense, attack, formation, sound wave, barracks, concealment, and so on, but there was no amplification type yet. Integrating this treasure would not only fill in the gap in this aspect, but it would also improve the combat power of the Timeless Arc very obviously. If Fang Qingshan had this treasure before, it wouldn't have been so difficult to deal with Pang Bo, let alone a Tai. And as the Timeless Arc leveled up, maybe in the future, when the Timeless Arc reached the peak of the ancient era, with this treasure, he might even be able to defeat a Venerable Emperor. In addition to the amplification rule, the other thing was also very good. It was the dreamlike chi that appeared when the infinite void was formed in the universe. Although it wasn't the first, and although it couldn't compare to the chi of heaven and earth, origin chi, it was still very good. Especially in the way of illusion, this thing could be said to be unique. But the appearance of this thing was that of a butterfly, a colorful butterfly, a dreamlike butterfly that seemed to be condensed from clouds and mist. It was gorgeous, colorful, and magical. At first glance, it made people feel as if their minds are going to be completely immersed in it. It was like a dream or an illusion, illusory or real, real or fake, and it was difficult to tell. The butterfly dreaming of Zhuangzhou, Zhuangzhou dreaming of the butterfly. If he were to fuse it with the eternal heavenly vessel, he would first have to use it with the hibernation pearl that Fang Qingshan had already decided to fuse with. That way, he would be able to conceal himself from heaven's will and conceal his tracks. It could be considered to have completely made up for the shortcomings in this aspect. Secondly, the timeless arc had physical attacks, thunderclap flags, soul attacks, death scythe, sonic attacks, bell of chaos, AoE attacks, spell formations, exotic treasures, treasure fall coin. Although the sharpness of the dream butterfly's attacks couldn't compare to these treasures, it was superior in that it was silent and could subtly affect one's movements. It was formless and intangible, like an illusion, but it was also fake when it was fake. If one was careless and fell into it, even if one was a very powerful person, they could still completely fall into it. This was also a treasure that allowed the weak to defeat the strong. There were too many possibilities. So, after experiencing the joy of obtaining the treasures that he wanted, Fang Qingshan came back to his senses and sighed again. Looking at the starry sky in front of him, looking at the stars that hung high in the sky like the center of the world, Fang Qingshan still felt like he had entered a treasure mountain and returned empty-handed. If this kind of thinking was known by others, they would probably want to tear him into pieces. Good heavens, the others didn't even have the qualifications to enter here, but he entered and obtained 3 supreme treasures. Moreover, they were all top-grade supreme treasures, but he was still not satisfied. How could others endure this? In fact, it wasn't that Fang Qingshan's temperament wasn't good enough, but the temptation here was too great. Although there weren't many peak 3rd-grade supreme treasures here, there were still more than 100 of them floating in the sky in the depths of the starry sky. An ancient aura that seemed to last for eternity emanated from these stars. Through these stars, one could see countless lights and shadows emerging. They looked like humans, beasts, swords, sabers, spiritual treasures, spiritual roots, and spiritual materials. They all contained tyrannical fluctuations and looked extremely strange. Even a peak divine emperor would benefit greatly from obtaining one. This was the foundation of the Dao sect. Moreover, it wasn't all of them. Only 4 levels of the emperor-level foundation were left. This could be mobilized at any time, and this didn't include the private plots of those divine emperors. Fang Qingshan's eyes swept across these stars with extreme passion. He licked his burning lips and rubbed his itchy palms, wishing he could take away all the treasures here. Unfortunately, this thought could only be entertained in his mind for a while. At this moment, Fang Qingshan found it difficult to even move, let alone take the treasures. A formless repulsive force appeared out of nowhere. That force was extremely terrifying, and it increased with each passing moment, as if it didn't want Fang Qingshan to stay here any longer. Fang Qingshan knew that this meant that he had used up his authority and was being rejected by Zhai Xinglu. If he didn't leave now, he would be thrown out. Forget it, forget it. It's already a blessing to be able to obtain these 3 treasures today. I can't force it. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If it's not meant to be, don't force it. Leave. With a thought from Fang Qingshan, that repulsive force suddenly increased, shooting out a circle of white light. The light condensed in front of him and turned into a path of light. Then, Fang Qingshan felt a strong force pushing him from behind. He followed the path of light and left Zhai Xinglu in an instant. "All right, kid, come down." When he came back to his senses, a familiar voice rang in his ears. When he opened his eyes, it was Qian Duo and the others. He didn't expect to be directly sent back to the Hall of Bountiful Treasures. "Thank you, elders." Fang Qingshan composed himself and bowed to Qian Duo and the others. "Forget it, go." The other elders waved their hands. Fang Qingshan followed Qian Duo out of the third floor. He didn't stay any longer and went straight back to Samsara Star. Yes, Samsara Star, not Life and Death Island. He was now a true disciple. The outer sect lived in the continent, the inner sect lived in the star-shifting sea, and the true disciples lived in the starry sky. This Samsara Star was a training ground specially made for him by Heavenly Works Hall of Dao sect. It was one of the benefits of being a true disciple. Not only was this training ground bigger than Life and Death Island, but it was also more suitable for him. The effect was more obvious when he cultivated. Back on the star, Fang Qingshan rested for a while and went out for a walk. He found that the people he knew were all busy. Jiang Overlord was already in seclusion, preparing to break through to God Emperor. Yang Mei was out traveling, preparing to apply for a true disciple trial after he broke through to the late-stage immortal realm. Jiang Mingwei had already passed the immortal tribulation and was stabilizing her cultivation. Pang Bo and the others were also in seclusion, digesting the benefits of the intersect competition. I have 3 pressing matters now. Back at the training ground, Fang Qingshan sorted out his thoughts. Chapter 1493. First, I have to go to the Tower of Titles again. Challenging the Title Tower was not only a way for him to exchange blows with all kinds of elite geniuses and increase his experience, but it was also a kind of cultivation. Just like the inner disciple competition not long ago, Fang Qingshan had broken through to the peak of the late stage of the immortal realm because of the training in the Crimson Heaven realm and the fights with Jiang Shan and Pang Bo, which helped Fang Qingshan reach the peak of the late stage of the immortal realm. Moreover, after obtaining the title, he would be blessed by the heaven and earth. Although it might not be as effective as the blessing from the Dao Will sect after obtaining the first place in the inner disciple competition, it would still be beneficial for cultivation, breakthrough, and treasure hunting. This matter was of the utmost importance. With karmic luck on his body, when the time came, the world would support him. With good karmic luck, doing other things would be even easier. Moreover, challenging the Tower of Titles was not like the others. It depended on luck, and the difficulty was relatively easy. If there were benefits, and the difficulty was low, he would naturally have to complete it first. Second, the advancement of the Timeless Arkansas. Third, I have to find more level 3 Divine Emperor Dao books. Actually, there was no priority for these 2 things, because it was not something that could be completed just because one wanted to. This was what he had said before, that it depended on luck and opportunity. The advancement of the Timeless Arc required several suitable high-grade treasures. The easiest way to obtain level 3 Divine Emperor Dao books was to earn Dao meaning points. In order to earn Dao meaning points, other than rewards like the inner disciple competition, the only other way was to complete the sect's missions or exchange treasures. However, although these 2 goals depended on luck, in general, he still had to complete the collection of Dao books first. This was because even if the Timeless Arc met the advancement conditions first, it would still have to be suppressed. Otherwise, if he missed the eternal blessing, it would not be easy to perfect the Divine Emperor chapter of the All Heavens Dao verification skill. One wrong step would lead to many more mistakes. If the Divine Emperor chapter could not be perfected, it would further hinder his cultivation after breaking through to the Divine Emperor realm. Since he had made up his mind, Fang Qingshan stayed in the sect for another 2 days before going to the mission hall to see if there were any suitable missions. Then, he left the Dao chaotic world through the heavenly dimensional gate. The matter of the Timeless Arc's eternal units could not be rushed. Now that there were 7 eternal furnace units, there was only 1 confirmed hibernation orb. The Timeless Arc's main body had fused with the rank 3 Elysium Lotus. He still lacked at least 6 eternal divine furnace units. Although he had obtained 3 top-grade, 3 supreme treasures from the Dao Esec secret vault, they could only be shelved for now due to their high grade. Even the skeleton of the peak Divine Emperor, who cultivated the Reincarnation Great Way, was too profound for Fang Qingshan to understand. Therefore, What he needed to do now was to continue searching for rare second-grade treasures. Of course, Fang Qingshan could also go to the Bountiful Treasures Pavilion to take a look in exchange for one or two. Unfortunately, he was a little short of money. Of course, if he was willing to use the level 3 treasure he had just obtained to exchange for it, it would be fine, but the loss would outweigh the gain. As for level 3 Divine Emperor Tao Scriptures, Fang Qingshan only had one that he had obtained from the Crimson Firmament Realm for reference. He also received a free Divine Emperor Tao Scripture from the Tao Palace in advance. This was the benefit of the Tao E6 Divine Emperor. Although Fang Qingshan's cultivation had not reached that level yet, his talent had been proven. Geniuses always received preferential treatment. In addition, Elder Zhe knew of his ambition to create his own Divine Emperor Scripture, so he made an exception and allowed him to receive it in advance. As for the other Divine Emperor Tao Scriptures, he did not receive them for free like before. Even the incomplete cultivation methods and divine abilities were the same. After all, Divine Emperor Tao Scriptures were too valuable. Although Fang Qingshan was good, he was only a true disciple. Even an elder with real power could not enjoy it without paying a price. After all, nothing could be accomplished without rules. He could not receive them for free. Although he still had some Tao meaning points, which were the rewards from the inner disciple competition, it was not enough to support him to study more. He could only use the same trick in exchange for a few incomplete cultivation methods. He then used the Scripture Pavilion in the Timeless Ark to deduce them. However, it was already difficult to deduce immortal level cultivation methods, let alone Divine Emperor level cultivation methods. It was as slow as a tortoise. As for other cultivation methods, he could only look at them and lament his inadequacy. Fang Qingshan could not help but sigh that a man without money was no match for a hero. Therefore, Fang Qingshan had to go to the mission hall to receive missions. Firstly, he wanted to earn Tao meaning points. Secondly, he wanted to do it because he had nothing better to do. This time, his goal was to go to the Tidal Tower and take the immortal level test. However, he was not in a hurry. Fang Qingshan planned to travel to the Tidal Tower as his destination. The reason for this was that his cultivation had broken through too quickly. From the peak of the Origin Chaos to the peak of the immortal level, others would not find it too long, even if they spent tens of thousands of years. However, he had only used a few years. Although this did not cause his foundation to become unstable, Fang Qingshan still wanted to settle down. Anyway, the Divine Emperor Scripture had not been perfected, and the Timeless Ark had not reached the point of advancement. Even if he wanted to make a breakthrough, it would not be possible. Furthermore, as mentioned before, he wanted to earn Tao meaning points in order to exchange the Divine Emperor cultivation method and suitable spiritual treasures. Finally, it was the same as when Mosquito Dowrin and the World Tree went out for a stroll. Exploring secrets, accumulating resources, and finding suitable Timeless Ark Divine Furnace Unit would be the best. Instead of reading thousands of books, traveling thousands of miles was better than reading thousands of books. It could broaden one's horizons, improve one's cultivation, and so on. Walking in the boundless void once again, Fang Qingshan's mood was completely different. The first time was when he had just arrived in the myriad heavens and realms. Although the boundless void shocked him greatly, he was still confused about his future. He did not know what to do next, and whether the future would be good or bad. Later on, he was even hunted down. He was in a constant state of anxiety and hurried on with his journey, afraid that he would be surrounded before reinforcements arrived. He could not care about anything else. As for Jiang Overlord, after the danger was eliminated, he thought that it was not easy for him to meet an expert and was eager to learn from him. Then there was the last time when Mosquito Dowrin and the World Tree clone went out to search for resources. But this time, his cultivation had increased to the peak of a mortal realm. Even if he faced an early-stage Divine Emperor, he could escape unscathed. His safety was guaranteed, and he felt more confident. The path ahead was clear. There was no confusion, and he was not in a hurry. Naturally, he felt more at ease. The boundless void was vast and boundless. Even venerable sovereigns would not dare to say that they had walked through every place. For Feng Qingshan, everything was full of unknowns, but it was also full of novelty. Although he did not have a void spaceship, he had the timeless Arkansas coupled with a navigation map obtained from the Tao Meaning sect and the Thunder Emperor driving. He did not have to worry about getting lost. Chapter 1494. The Timeless Ark was now at the Supreme class. Thanks to Feng Qingshan's nurturing, it had reached the mutated level. Although it could not compare to the immortal level, it was much more powerful than the average Supreme class. In terms of offense, there was the deck unit, the soul-chasing crossbow, the fatal arrow, the ancient cannon station, the magic tower, the soul-shaking bell, the divine furnace unit, the death scythe, the chaos horn, the thunderclap flag. In terms of defense, there was the sky ship itself, the great void god armor, the heaven and earth cauldron, the chaos bell, the red lotus of hellfire. It could be said that it was unparalleled among the same level. However, in terms of speed, it was a little lacking. The speed of the timeless ark came from the support of the sails and the otherworld bridge. In the past, he could not tell much. However, at this moment, Feng Qingshan felt that he really could not make it. The boundless void was too vast. In the past, perhaps due to the limitations of his cultivation, he did not feel much. However, this trip felt a little slow. Starting from the Dowell Gate, with the speed of the timeless ark, he continuously flew and crossed through space. After repeating this many times, he finally crossed an unknown distance. He did not know how much time was wasted along the way before he finally approached Feng Qingshan's next destination, the fallen dragon mysterious domain. Sigh, looks like before the timeless ark advances, I should find another speed-type divine furnace unit or upgrade the otherworld bridge. This was what Feng Qingshan thought. Although he had some ideas in his mind, he could not cook without rice. He could only think about it and come up with a plan first. Speaking of which, the best way to explore, to gain knowledge, and to collect resources was naturally to go to various danger zones and mysterious domains to try his luck. After all, in other worlds, apart from trading, there were basically no open resources. Most of them were occupied by the nearby forces. Only the void danger zones were difficult to occupy because they were located in the boundless void, so there was a chance of survival. The Fallen Dragon Mysterious Domain was one of the destinations that Feng Qingshan had chosen according to the map. The Fallen Dragon's secret realm was no different from the 10,000 Beast Mountain Range and the Corpse battlefield that Mosquito Dowren had explored before. They were all void danger zones. The only difference was the grade. The 10,000 Beast Mountain Range and the Corpse battlefield were all at the Primordial Chaos realm. Although they were a bit special, they were still between Primordial Chaos and Immortal Realm. The Fallen Dragon's secret domain's rank was the same as Feng Qingshan's cultivation base. It was a level above the Undying Realm, between the Undying Realm and God Emperor Realm. Regardless of whether it was the resources or the level of danger, they were all incomparable. The reason why Feng Qingshan chose this dangerous place. Firstly, his cultivation had increased. If he were to choose a dangerous place like the Myriad Beast Mountain, it would obviously be completely unnecessary and meaningless. After all, to him, he needed resources that were at least high-grade LV2 or above to support him. Low-grade resources weren't useless, but they were more or less enough. The second reason was the same as choosing the 10,000 Beast Mountain and the Corpse battlefield. There weren't many people here. Although it was dangerous, he was strong enough to deal with it and obtain more resources. Feng Qingshan was also poor. Although he had managed to scoop up 3 top-grade treasures from the candied oranges, they were completely useless. On the contrary, if the Timeless Ark wanted to level up, it would need at least 6 special treasures that were at least second tier and above. It would also need to exchange for a God Emperor level technique, and it would need a massive amount of Dao insight points. Not to mention Mosquito Dowren, the cultivation resources of the World Tree Avatar. Feng Qingshan hadn't been so strapped for money in a long time, so he had to reap the benefits. Moreover, the Fallen Dragon Mystery Land happened to be on his way to the Tidal Tower, so he didn't have to change his route. Furthermore, Fang Qingshan had accepted a mission from the sect, which included collecting resources. It didn't matter if they were spirit herbs or spiritual materials. They might be found in the Fallen Dragon arcane realm. This could be considered as killing two birds with one stone. Nothing will be delayed. According to the star map, I'll reach the Fallen Dragon Mystery Land in about 1 or 2 days. After learning the details from the Thunder Emperor, Fang Qingshan couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. Then, he sighed and muttered to himself, "Sigh, the Timeless Arc really needs to level up. At least, it needs to strengthen its speed. Otherwise, it won't be convenient to travel in such a vast, boundless void." Third Commander, Fang Qingshan's Timeless Arc is approaching the Fallen Dragon Mystery Land. Not far behind Fang Qingshan, a faintly discernible shadow was following him like a shadow, but Fang Qingshan didn't sense it at all. It was also a void spaceship. Ever since Fang Qingshan left the Dao sect, it had been following him. However, it had a treasure like the hibernation pearl that could conceal one's whereabouts. Therefore, Fang Qingshan had no idea that he was being followed. In the void spaceship, there was a spy who was constantly watching Fang Qingshan. Every once in a while, he would report about Fang Qingshan's movements to a person who sat on the highest seat on the top floor of the spaceship. The Fallen Dragon Mystery Land. The third commander wasn't tall, but he wasn't short either. His appearance was neither ugly nor handsome. He seemed very ordinary. If he was thrown into a crowd, he would blend in perfectly. However, no one dared to underestimate him. From the way the spy replied in a trembling voice, it was clear that this person was definitely not as ordinary as he seemed on the surface. He was originally leaning against the huge seat lazily, as if he was paralyzed. However, when he heard the words Fallen Dragon Mystery Land, he was like a sleeping lion that had been startled awake. He opened his eyes with a swoosh, and 2 beams of light shot out. In an instant, an extremely shocking aura burst forth, releasing extremely terrifying fluctuations. The spy instantly felt as if a mountain was pressing down on him. He was lying on the ground, unable to move. Fortunately, the aura left as quickly as it came. Looks like he really wants to go to the Fallen Dragon Mystery Land. Hee, there's a path to heaven, but he doesn't take it. Don't let Fang Qingshan escape. Otherwise, you know the consequences. The third commander mumbled to himself. Then his eyes turned and fell on the spy. His eyes shone with a terrifying light, and his voice was sharp and deep. Immediately send a message to the first commander and the second commander. Tell them that everything is ready. We must also prepare well. We must do it cleanly, and we can't let Fang Qingshan escape. Otherwise, you know the consequences. Yes, third commander. When the spy heard the word consequences, he seemed to remember something unforgettable. His body trembled, and he quickly replied, "All right, you may leave." The third commander waved his hand. Through the cabin, he seemed to see Fang Qingshan. His eyes shone with an intense cold light, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. "I've been following him for so long. Everything is under control. The Dao sect, a genius." Although he didn't finish his sentence, it was obvious from his words that this was a conspiracy. It was a conspiracy against Fang Qingshan and the entire Dao sect. Chapter 1495. Where there were people, there would be conflicts. Where there were conflicts, there would be interests, and where there were interests, there would be disputes. No one could stay out of trouble, not even Dizun. This was because you were not alone. Even if you were alone, the problem was that even if you did not provoke others, others might still come to provoke you. Because of your existence, you might affect others. This was like a disaster falling from the sky while sitting at home. Of course, this plot against the Dao school wasn't an unprovoked disaster. It could only be said that conflicts accumulated together and were detonated by the fuse, just like a cataclysm. Speaking of which, the Dao school could be said to have a wide range of friends. Even the Holy Buddha clan and the Primordial Immortal clan were willing to receive their promises. However, this didn't mean that the Dao school didn't have enemies. First of all, there were good and evil. The Dao school was considered a righteous sect, So naturally, they were at odds with the heavenly evil clan. They were born with different standpoints. Although they didn't have to fight to the death, as long as they seized the opportunity, it wouldn't be a problem to hit them when they were down. Secondly, the enemy of an enemy was a friend, and the friend of an enemy was also an enemy. It could be said that the number of friends the Dao school had was the number of enemies. Thinking about how the Scarlet Cloud faction was destroyed, it was all because of a promise. The fox mourned the death of the rabbit. Would other people be like the Dao school, who made many promises only to end up using them on themselves? Therefore, those who received promises were naturally happy. Those who didn't were both envious and fearful. In recent years, the Dao school had developed very quickly. Although the sect didn't expand much, its strength increased rapidly. As the saying went, the enemy was strong while the West was weak. Either the east wind prevailed over the west wind, or the west wind prevailed over the east wind. Plus, even if they weren't enemies, the cake was only so big. If one party took an extra piece, the others would have one less. The rise of the Dao school naturally stirred up everyone's sensitive nerves. The Dao school's inter-house competition had been held many times. Why was this one so different? The fluttering snow palace, the House of Freedom, the Jiwu clan, and so on all came. The real reason was that many people didn't want to see the rise of the Dao school. The Dao sect's inner sanctum competition became the fuse. My goodness, the strength he displayed through the inter-sect grand competition had truly shocked more than half of the Boundless Void. The inter-sect disciples were at the late stage of a mortal realm. Each of them had a top-notch level 2 treasure. Moreover, many of them were level 3 treasures. After they were repaired, they would become level 3 treasures. It even had the foundation of the 4 ultimate treasures. All sorts of 3rd and 4th level divine abilities and battle techniques. He also had the essence blood of peak beast emperors, the imprints of venerable sovereigns, the human Dao torrent, and the timeless Arkansas. And this was just what they had shown, just the intersect, just this generation of disciples. What about the true inheritances? The previous generation, the generations before that, where were the elders? Especially at the end, when the destiny of the Dao sect manifested, the feeling of being like the sun in the midday sky touched everyone's nerves. As the saying goes, when something is out of the ordinary, there must be a demon. The sudden eruption of strength from the Dao sect was like a blow to everyone's heart. In order to stop the rise of the Dao sect, some forces started to target the Dao sect. Fang Qingshan was just caught in the crossfire. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. The tallest person would be disrespected. As the saying goes, the bird that sticks out will be shot. Who asked him to be so outstanding? Of course, he was not the only one. The disciples of the Dao sect outside were more or less targeted. It was just a matter of strength. For example, the 3rd commander that was sent to deal with Fang Qingshan was a divine emperor. Moreover, the 2nd commander and the 1st commander were already lying in ambush. The others, except for Pang Bo, were also sent to attack according to their strength. Obviously, Fang Qingshan did not know about this. Not to mention Fang Qingshan, even the Dao sect was still in the dark. These people were too fast and too secretive. In addition, the Dao sect did not think about this at all. Otherwise, they would have activated the emergency alert and informed everyone. However, it was fine if they did not know. With Fang Qingshan's current strength, he could deal with normal situations. As long as a divine emperor did not appear, unless it was a top genius like the heavenly evil marquis, otherwise they could not cause much trouble to him, even if they were besieged. Even if there was a divine emperor, without the strength of a mid-divine emperor, it would be completely useless. Moreover, even if there was a mid-divine emperor, Fang Qingshan was not worried. Unless they could suppress him in an instant, he could still escape by exposing the celestial chessboard. As long as he did not die, what was there to be afraid of? It was even to the extent that between life and death, there would naturally be great terror. For him, this could be said to be a rare experience, an extraordinary opportunity. After a period of time, Fang Qingshan's timeless arc finally began to slow down. It was obvious that he was about to reach his destination. The Fallen Dragon's secret realm was actually somewhat similar to the Crimson Heaven realm. They were both independent spaces and worlds that were attached to another world. However, the Crimson Heaven realm was attached to the Tao chaotic world, while the Fallen Dragon's secret realm was attached to the boundless void. After passing through the entrance of the Fallen Dragon's secret realm, Fang Qingshan took a step forward. In a split second, an aura that was different from the boundless void and the myriad worlds surged towards him. Good fella, this place was indeed a dangerous place between the immortal and divine emperor realms. The density of the heaven and earth Yuan Qi here seemed to be even higher than his own dojo, the Samsara Star. Most importantly, there was a kind of desolation in this place, as if it had existed for many, many years, infinitely ancient. It was as if this place had never existed since ancient times. At a glance, one could see the lush growth of trees, each towering into the sky. Although they might not be spiritual roots, they were very ancient and huge. All sorts of roars could be heard, seemingly coming from far away. The roars carried a kind of violent aura with them. The Fallen Dragon's secret realm, according to legends, was named after a late god emperor dragon fell here. Of course, if it was really a disaster that could kill a late god emperor dragon, then the danger zone would definitely not be just between the immortal and divine emperor realms. The source was actually this giant dragon. This giant dragon was really unlucky for 8 lifetimes. First, he was originally a member of a very powerful force in the myriad worlds, the dragon race. Although he was not a direct descendant, with his late god emperor strength, he was not a nobody. With his status and identity, who would not look up to him. However, perhaps he had offended someone with real power or failed in a power struggle, or for some other reason, he was chased out of the dragon realm and removed from the dragon race. Fortunately, his name was only removed, his cultivation was not destroyed. Chapter 1496. Though his name was merely removed, and his cultivation wasn't destroyed to the dragon, this was without a doubt a bolt from the blue. Ignoring the issue of face, the humiliation he would feel now would be the same as how highly he thought of him in the past. Most importantly, without the support of the dragon race, even if he was a deity emperor, he wouldn't be safe. In the past, due to the dragon race's influence, he had offended many people. He even tolerated those who didn't like him. But now, all of them had popped up. As the saying goes, a dragon in shallow waters will be toyed with by prawns. A tiger in a flat land will be bullied by dogs. When you were in the limelight, there would naturally be people who would flock to you and compliment you to the point that you were rare in the world. They would even say that your fart was fragrant. When you were in decline, there would naturally be people who would throw stones at you when you were down. Not to mention those enemies. Those who had once chased after you might be even more ruthless than your enemies. Just as expected, this dragon had just been chased out of the dragon realm. Before he could recover from shock, he was ambushed by a group of people. These people were very familiar with his methods and knew how to deal with him. If he didn't have some trump cards up his sleeve, he would have died there and then. Even though he tried his best to escape, he was still heavily injured. However, his bad luck didn't end there. As the saying goes, when it rains, it pours. When the boat is late, it is hit by the first wind. Unfortunately, in the process of escaping, under the situation where there were pursuers behind him, he had no choice but to run and to avoid natural disaster in a panic. This natural disaster wasn't too powerful. It was only at the deity emperor level. Under normal circumstances, he could easily suppress and destroy it. However, at this moment, he was heavily injured. Therefore, the result was easy to predict. Although this unlucky giant dragon had used all its means to destroy the catastrophe, it still used up the last drop of its blood and died here. Therefore, this fallen dragon hidden domain was created. However, perhaps it was because this dragon died too tragically. The fallen dragon hidden domain was filled with unwillingness, obsession, hatred, insanity, revenge, and other negative emotions. There were even curses. Therefore, although it was a deity emperor natural disaster, a late-stage deity emperor dragon created a danger zone that was between the immortal and deity emperor levels. The danger level was not low at all. The dragon itself was an extremely powerful creature, and combined with the natural disaster, coupled with the resentment, the creatures in the secret realm were naturally 3 times stronger. Moreover, they only knew how to kill without caring about anything else. It was really a headache. At the same time, because of the resentment and baleful aura, the heavenly treasures produced here still needed to be processed. Putting aside the danger, the natural treasures produced were not at the God Emperor level. Most importantly, it was not easy to use. Therefore, apart from special circumstances, very few people would come to the Fallen Dragon Mystery Realm. Fang Qingshan had already expected this, and it was precisely because of this that he had to come. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come. For others, the dangers and negative factors in the materials were not a problem for him. On the contrary, venturing into such a dangerous place would bring him the most benefits. Go! Fang Qingshan ordered. Rumble. A series of deafening noises could be heard. Suddenly, after a distortion, a huge timeless arc emerged from a void. The timeless arc was boundless. Around it, billions of living beings were praying piously. The faith energy was integrated into the timeless arc, subtly enhancing the power of the timeless Arkansas. It was refining the timeless arc itself. As Fang Qingshan integrated the hibernation pearl, a top level 2 treasure, and the blissful lotus, a level 3 spiritual root, into the timeless arc, although the timeless arc was still a distance away from the immortal realm, it had a qualitative leap compared to before. After all, it consumed a level 3 spiritual root, which was more precious than ordinary level 3 treasures. Many new or rogue deity emperors did not have level 3 treasures. Go! When the timeless arc appeared, Fang Qingshan did not use the timeless arc to charge around, because it was not worth it. Although his cultivation base had not reached deity emperor, against ordinary immortal emperors, it was like an adult beating up a child. Moreover, if he had to do everything himself, it would be no different from being alone. Hence, this time, Fang Qingshan sent out his own subordinates. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, a military camp appeared, and the sails of the ships trembled. Dong, dong, dong! Then, a series of footsteps that sounded like the beating of drums could be heard. It was so neat that it sounded like a person running. Furthermore, it contained a strong sense of rhythm. Following that, troops could be seen walking out. Through their aura, one could feel that although their cultivation base might not be that high, their aura was connected, and the cultivation technique within them was definitely the same. Cultivating the same cultivation technique and battle technique, after being in contact day and night, their hearts were connected, as if they were a single entity. When they walked out, the army was like a single person, unmoving like a mountain, rushing like lightning. The aura they emitted was extremely terrifying. Among these troops, the most elite ones were naturally the eternal Tao soldiers that walked out of the military camp. This military camp was the Eternal Divine Furnace Unit, the Eternal Military Camp, an existence that specialized in nurturing peak Tao soldiers. Back then, it was by relying on this treasure and these Tao soldiers that Fang Qingshan, with his primordial chaos realm cultivation base, had fought against dozens of immortal emperors, including the late-stage immortal emperors. Besides the eternal Tao soldiers, there were Azura Tao soldiers, which came from the sails of the Blood Ship. There were Voodoo Tao soldiers, which came from the sails of the Witchcraft. There were also Angel Tao soldiers, Zombie Tao soldiers, Sky Demon Tao soldiers, Sky Demon Tao soldiers. These legions constantly swept out from the timeless arc, quickly forming into an army. In the blink of an eye, they were in formation. Although they did not move, one could vaguely hear the sounds of fighting echoing above their heads. Weapons were unceasing. Their blood energy soared, and all demons fled. For a moment, the resentment, violence, bloodthirst, and other negative emotions in the entire Fallen Dragon secret realm seemed to be diluted a lot. The Fallen Dragon secret realm was too big. It was no smaller than the Crimson Heaven realm. If Fang Qingshan relied on himself, his speed would be slow and tiring. Moreover, the reason why Fang Qingshan had sent out the Dao soldiers was not only to help him quickly sweep through the Fallen Dragon's secret realm and collect resources, but also to nurture the Dao soldiers through fighting. Since they were Dao soldiers, an army, naturally, they could only grow the fastest through fighting. Fang Qingshan's cultivation base had reached the peak of the immortal Emperor realm, and he was about to break through to the God Emperor realm. If these Dao soldiers did not grow faster, they would not be able to keep up with his pace. And if they could not keep up, they would be eliminated. Although they could also advance with a timeless arc, that was obviously too slow. Moreover, the better their foundation, the more benefits they would receive when the timeless arc advanced. Chapter 1497. It was just like the eternal blessing. If you had comprehended hundreds of techniques and then used the eternal blessing to get rid of the impurities, you could perfect the technique directly. If you didn't have a knowledge in your head, you could only rely on what you had learned or improve your cultivation base directly. Although it could also bring you benefits, and the effect was obvious, it wasn't as good as creating new techniques. Because it wasn't just the immediate benefits, but also the long-term benefits. It was the same for the supreme treasures in the Eternal God Furnace unit, like the Chaos Bell and the Red Fire Lotus. Not only were they easy to level up, but they could also strengthen their foundation. However, if the other shore bridge, the passing water lamp, and the thunder flag weren't the same, if Fang Qingshan hadn't fused more treasures into them, they wouldn't have been able to keep up with his pace. Similarly, if the Dao soldiers had a strong foundation, they could level up smoothly with the advancement of the Timeless Arkansas. Moreover, they could build a better foundation to prepare for the next breakthrough. The Dao soldiers weren't like the spiritual treasures that could level up as long as they kept fusing with higher spiritual materials. They needed to fight more. Only fighting could help them master the technique. The creatures in the Fallen Dragon's secret domain specialized in killing. Their cultivation base was high, so they were the best candidates to train the Dao soldiers. Besides their infant stage, when they grew up, the weakest of them would be at the early stage of Immortal Realm. The best ones would be at the late stage of Immortal Realm. Many of them would be at the peak of Immortal Realm. The kings would be at the God Emperor Realm. Their competence was enough to suppress the Dao soldiers. However, with pressure, there would be motivation. Moreover, because of the resentment, they were only good at fighting alone. They didn't know how to cooperate, which gave the Dao soldiers a chance. Moreover, although they had a lot of people, they couldn't gather all of them in a short time. It was another problem of time. Roar, roar, roar. Fang Qingshan's arrival, the strange aura, the timeless arc, the barracks, the Dao soldiers, and a murderous, iron-blooded murderous aura had startled the creatures in the Fallen Dragon's secret domain. Desolate and furious roars arose with anger, bloodthirst, and craziness. They seemed to be angry at the intruders, but they also seemed to be sending some kind of message. How many years had it been? Although it wasn't as if no one had come to the Fallen Dragon mystery area. None of those who had come here had their tails between their legs, acting in secret. Unlike Fang Qingshan and the others who were so open and above board, it was obvious that they were here to cause trouble. The enraged dragons, serpents, coils, serpents, tautai, basha, or anyway, they were all huge dragon-like creatures that charged out from all directions. They did not try to be courteous before resorting to force. They charged at the Taoist soldiers fiercely. Rumble. The entire Fallen Dragon's secret realm began to shake. Space itself was trembling, and a murderous aura suddenly erupted. War banners fluttered in the wind, bugle horns sounded, and golden spears and armored horses galloped. A berserk and primordial aura immediately emanated from the bodies of every single dragon-like creature. They rushed forward, constantly wreaking havoc and colliding with each other. It was like a mountain torrent, like a huge wave. In an instant, there was a terrifying feeling of being able to crush and destroy everything. Good heavens, each of them had at least an early-stage Immortal Realm cultivation base. Hundreds or even thousands of them charging at him. This feeling was too shocking. Although Fang Qingshan had seen such a scene before, it was not the first time he had seen such a scene. The number of people and quality in the Dao will sex inter-disciple competition was not lower than here, but it was not as tragic, crazy, and bloodthirsty. Of course, the fallen dragon's secret realm was very domineering, and the Taoist soldiers were naturally worthy of praise. Facing the attack of the dragon beasts, they did not panic. They were all ready to fight. When two sides met on a narrow path, only the brave would win. Especially when facing a strong enemy, courage was needed. If they did not even have courage, they would really become fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Kill! The Taoist soldiers took their positions and formed a formation, shouting. In an instant, all kinds of formations suddenly flashed. There was the infinite blood sea formation. The sky was filled with blood clouds, and it turned into a boundless sea of blood that devoured and corroded everything. This was the blood sail, a Taoist soldier formation set up by the Azure clan. It was the formation from Mosquito Doran's Infinite Blood Sea Sutra. There was the Jot Eon star formation. The stars shone, the sun and the moon competed for glory. When the stars fell, the sky collapsed. This was the formation set up by the Demon Clan in the Sky Demon Sail. Although it was not comparable to Fang Qingshan's Jot Eon star formation, it was like Di Juntai in the past. Everyone had a star banner. There was the 12 Heaven Divine Fiend formation. This was the formation set up by the Wu people in the Sorcerer's Sail. Fang Qingshan and the Wu people were good friends, and he also had Pan Gu's Heaven Creation mark in his mind. It was normal to have this formation. However, this formation had almost disappeared after the 12 Zhu Wu. Not to mention outsiders. Even the Wu people couldn't use it. Otherwise, why would Qiyu need to use the 9-9 Mysterious Een formation to fight Xianyuan? However, now that Fang Qingshan's cultivation had reached the peak of a mortal realm, which was much higher than Pan Gu's, he modified it from a strategic point of view. And the angel Taoist soldier in the angel sail had set up the heavenly formation. It spread the holy light, and the glory of the Lord covered the world, summoning the Saint Church. This formation was obtained by Fang Qingshan together with the supreme treasure of the angel sail. It was also very powerful. In addition, there was the 9 Bends Yellow River formation, the 10 Ultimate formation, the 10,000 Dragons facing the Sky formation, the 100 Birds facing the Phoenix formation, the 10,000 Beast formation, the 12 Origin Star formation, the 10,000 Immortals formation, the Yin and Yang Dust Sword formation. Of course, the most powerful formation was the All Heavens formation set up by the Eternal Taoist Soldier. Fang Qingshan's All Heavens doctrine wasn't just a cultivation method. It not only had a protective method, but also hundreds of cultivation skills. The All Heavens formation was a supporting formation for the All Heavens Dao verification technique, and it was similar to the All Heavens Samsara chess. Both were created by Fang Qingshan according to the All Heavens chessboard and the various formations. Each person was a chess piece, and each chess piece was a world. The infinite void was the chessboard, and the chaotic world was the chess piece. Its power was unparalleled. At that moment, extremely sharp, killing intent burst out. Invisible sword chi, blood chi, and baleful aura tore through everything in the surroundings. They turned into extremely ferocious attacks that blasted towards the dragon beast that was charging towards him like a tidal wave. Although the cultivation of these Taoist soldiers wasn't high, it was different when they worked together. The formation was a wonderful way to defeat the strong. When the Taoist soldiers set up the formation, it was like adding wings to a tiger. Because they practiced the same cultivation method, their cultivation was similar, and they lived and ate together all year round. They could understand what was going on with just one look. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that they had a telepathic connection. In this way, the formation was smoother and it was easier to break. Naturally, it was more powerful and it was harder to break. Chapter 1498. Facing the explosion of the Dao soldier formation, The dragon beasts had no intention of retreating at all. All of their eyes turned red as if they had gone mad. They charged over, and the drumming sound were like the beating of war drums. The drum beats became more frequent, and a murderous aura condensed. These dragon beasts didn't have any spiritual treasures, but just like Wu people, their physical bodies were the best treasures. With a punch and a claw, their vital energy and blood surged. It was as if the sun was hanging high in the sky, and one could vaguely see a huge world. The might of the dragon spread out, and it was like a prison. It was majestic and vast, as if it could shake the entire secret realm. Rumble. The power of the formation collided with the power formed by the charge of hundreds and thousands of draconic beasts. It was truly earth-shattering and shocking to the extreme. Before it, it felt as if it would immediately collapse and then be destroyed, turning into powder. The entire void was torn apart. Cracks that looked like spider webs spread all over the void and the earth. Why? In the next moment, be it the dragon beasts or the Dao soldiers, they couldn't help but cough up blood one after another. After all, the cultivation of the dragon beasts was higher. Although they didn't know how to cooperate and only knew how to kill, their skin was thick and they had endless strength. Their attacks were very sharp, and when the attacks landed on their bodies, their defense was shocking. The cultivation of the Dao soldiers was originally far inferior to theirs. Fortunately, the formation was connected, and their injuries could be shared. Thus, compared to the dragon beasts, they were less affected and stabilized their footing. However, the Dao soldiers were still at a disadvantage. If it was just one dragon beast, it wouldn't be a problem. However, if there were many targets, the power would be spread out, and it would be a completely different story. It was just like how they shared the damage. An attack that could severely injure the Dao soldiers, or even kill them, would only cause light injuries when it was shared among hundreds and thousands of people. Moreover, the dragon beasts weren't scarecrows that would just stand there and let you attack them. They knew how to attack too, and if they used attacks against attacks, they would cancel each other out. In the end, the effect of the remaining attacks could be imagined. The dragon fought in the wild, and its blood turned yellow. The dragon beasts were fierce to begin with, and after being injured, their attacks became even more brutal. Boom, boom, boom. Sounds that sounded like the sky was collapsing and the stars were flowing in reverse rang out. However, the Dao soldiers' formation was forced to retreat. The light of the formation flickered incessantly, and the nodes emitted a sound as if they were old and on the verge of breaking down, as if they were in danger of being breached at any moment. Luckily, on the whole, although they retreated, they didn't lose. Although they were shocked, they didn't panic. Although they looked like they were about to fall, they were like a roly-poly doll, standing firm. In addition, they weren't just the Dao soldiers in the formation cooperating with each other. Between the formations, although they were fighting individually, they helped each other. Their defensive power wasn't weak. In a short while, they weren't afraid of the army collapsing. Fang Qingshan could feel the terrifying pressure as well. Even though he was able to withstand it, his expression was still extremely grim. With his cultivation base, of course, he didn't care about those early stage, middle stage, and late stage dragon beasts. He didn't mind 1, 2, or even 8 or 10 of them. But what about 100 of them? What about hundreds or thousands? What's more, this was just someone who had appeared out of nowhere and had yet to make a move. The God Emperor Dragon Beast, which was even more powerful, hadn't made a move yet. Also, if he were to go all out, he would be able to defeat these dragon beasts. However, he would not be able to achieve his goal. He didn't send out the Dao soldiers to lighten his burden. More importantly, he wanted them to be tempered, improve, and keep up with his pace. Most importantly, Fang Qingshan's heart was filled with a sudden impulse, and he could sense a faint sense of danger. He didn't know where this danger came from. It was reasonable to say that it came from the dragon beasts of the fallen dragon secret domain. After all, there were 3 God Emperor dragon beasts here. However, he vaguely felt that something wasn't right. Thus, he didn't dare to lower his guard. Standing on the timeless arc, he was ready to fight. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he wouldn't make a move. Firstly, it was to temper the Dao soldiers. Although there might be a great number of casualties, merciful people shouldn't lead soldiers. Without a bone-chilling cold, how could they enjoy the fragrance of plum blossoms? If the Tao soldiers didn't improve, they would be useless to him. They wouldn't be able to be trained in the future, which would create a vicious cycle. Also, soldiers against soldiers, generals against generals. The real experts of the Fallen Dragon's secret domain hadn't made a move yet. Of course, he wouldn't make a move. Most importantly, this danger made him a little cautious. He didn't dare to act rashly. Fang Qingshan didn't move. The battle between the Tao soldiers and the dragon beasts was like a raging fire. Roar, roar, roar. The dragon beasts at the front were only at the early stage of the immortal realm. They were the vanguard, but they were also the cannon fodder. The dragon beasts at the late stage of the immortal realm were chasing after them. They didn't care about their lives. Streaks of starlight, streaks of sword chi, streaks of demonic thunder, streaks of magic, they covered the sky and fell on their bodies. Although they were at the immortal realm and had tough skin, they couldn't endure so many attacks. Shrill screams could be heard, and then their enormous and powerful bodies exploded, turning into a rain of blood that splattered everywhere. Their deaths didn't diminish the dragon beasts' enthusiasm. Quite the contrary, they seemed to have strengthened the dragon beasts, making their attacks more ferocious. It was one of the special effects of the fallen dragon's secret domain. They didn't know if it was because of the curse, resentment, or some other reason. After the dragon beasts died, the resentment left by the first old dragon would be stimulated. It would strengthen the other dragon beasts. It was like a secret technique that strengthened them. The more they died, the stronger it would be. Of course, the dragon beasts suffered heavy casualties, and the Tao soldiers naturally won. Although they could share the damage, they couldn't endure it for a long time. Like the dragon beasts, from time to time, one could see the Tao soldiers in the Tao soldier formation exploding like time bombs, like blooming blood-colored fireworks. Fortunately, besides the eternal Tao soldiers, the other Tao soldiers had reserves. They walked out of the sails continuously. Wave after wave, they managed to hold on. But they had reserves. The dragon beasts also had reinforcements. Thus, as time passed, the Tao soldiers' great formation became more and more difficult. Explosion. Fortunately, the dragon beasts had secret techniques to strengthen them. Naturally, they didn't lack Tao soldiers. Fang Qingshan's scripture depository had many secret techniques. The most important thing was that the Tao soldiers were different from the ordinary army. If the ordinary army suffered too many losses, their morale would be affected. They might even collapse. But the Tao soldiers wouldn't. They would fight to the last man. The Tao soldiers were like puppets. It was just that they were more flexible than puppets. From a moment they were raised, they were instilled with the belief that they wouldn't retreat in a bloody battle. As for death, it wasn't scary to them. That was because death wasn't the end, but a new beginning. Fang Qingshan cultivated reincarnation. As long as a trace of his true spirit wasn't destroyed, he could start over. Because of his previous life's accumulations, once he recovered, he could go up another level. Chapter 1499. What did the Buddhist sects rely on to develop so quickly in the desolation world? A large part of the reason was the Kittagarbha Bodhisattva taking root in the netherworld and the effects of the Buddhist sect's 8 treasure merit pool. They did not cultivate their present life, but their future life. To them, death was not a conclusion, but a new beginning. With the accumulation of several lifetimes, how could they not produce many experts and rise quickly? It was the same for these Tao soldiers. To ensure the protection of their true spirits, or to better control and train the Tao soldiers, Fang Qingshan refined a spiritual treasure, the True Spirit Banner. Every qualified Tao soldier would extract a strand of true spirit and infuse it into the Tao soldiers, just like the demon summoning banner in Dijun's hands. As the banner swayed, it could be controlled like an arm. If they died in the outside world, they could rely on the strand of true spirit in the True Spirit Banner to reincarnate, using the power of reincarnation to repair their true spirits and start over. Although it might take a lot of time, Fang Qingshan did not care. This was because, in his reincarnation, everything was under his control. The flow of time was naturally no exception. He could speed up time and speed up the recovery of the Dao soldiers. Therefore, the Dao soldiers did not fear death. They dared to fight to the death. If they died, they could just start over. If they did not die, they could advance to the next level. At that moment, all of them unleashed even more power. They used their power, qi, blood, primordial spirit, and even their lives and providence to resist the dragon beast's suppression. As the Dao soldiers risked their lives, they were on par with the dragon beasts. At the very least, the inner sect could not see any results in the short term. However, they could see that the dragon beasts at the front were either dead or no longer had the strength to fight. The Dao soldiers weren't any better. Apart from those who were already dead, the rest were aging at a speed visible to the naked eye. What a guy. I did not expect Fang Qingshan to have so many Dao soldiers around him. Furthermore, the formations set up by these Dao soldiers are all fine grade too. That's right, especially the group of Dao soldiers in the center. They are really shocking. Anyone below the Divine Emperor realm will not have much of an advantage against them. If he did not expose these methods to deal with the dragon beasts, we would be in trouble if he used them when we deal with him. While Fang Qingshan was dealing with the dragon, a group of people was standing on a small hill not far away from the battlefield. They had a transparent glass cover over their heads. Not only did it hide their bodies, auras, and heavenly secrets, neither Fang Qingshan nor the dragon beasts noticed it. It was as if it did not exist. These people were none other than the people who had been following Fang Qingshan. As the saying goes, the first commander and the second commander had already set up an ambush. They had been following Fang Qingshan ever since he left the Dao sect. Based on his route, they had arrived at the Dragon Death Mystery Land in advance to set up an ambush. He was prepared to make it impossible for Fang Qingshan to escape. Moreover, due to Fang Qingshan's performance in the Dao sect's Inner Sanctum competition, he had displayed the fighting power of a god emperor. Not only did they set up an ambush, they even sent out 3 deity emperors just in case. They really thought highly of Fang Qingshan. Then what do we do now? Should I make a move? How is the third commander? It's already been set up and ready for battle. Let's wait a little longer. Fang Qingshan is not the only one in the Mystery Land. There are a few God Emperor Dragon Beasts too. Once they start fighting, we'll take advantage of them. That makes sense? That's right. Let them fight first, then we'll sweep away the fallen leaves. Otherwise, if we expose ourselves in advance, the 3 Dragon Emperors will immediately target us. Putting aside the fact that the monsters hiding in the shadows were plotting against Fang Qingshan and the others had caused quite a commotion in the Fallen Dragon Mystery Land. It had shaken the entire Mystery Land. If it were not for the fact that they could not sense the auras of the martial emperors, the few old monsters in the Fallen Dragon Mystery Land would have already rushed out. Even so, the Dao soldier formation was on the verge of collapsing as more and more reinforcements arrived. Humph, timeless arc, bless. Transform. Fang Qingshan let out a cold harumph upon seeing this. In the next moment, the eternal lightning pool in the eternal heavenly vessel began to tremble. Strand after strand of origin energy poured into the Dao soldier formation. In particular, Fang Qingshan had directly tossed the cyclic stellar diagram, the yellow river diagram, and the all heavens chessboard to the corresponding Dao soldier formation. As a result, the Dao soldier formation seemed to have been injected with stimulants and immediately began to vibrate vigorously. For a moment, many giants could be seen standing tall. There was Pangu, the king of the stars, the god, and these people wielded weapons and directly slashed at the dragon beasts, splitting the sky and earth, tearing the void, and a sword light that could last for thousands of years. Or they directly used their fists as weapons. Their fists glowed with white light, and the fist energy was like a dragon. It let out a shocking roar that resounded in all directions. It was extremely ferocious and violent. The punch was extremely fierce, like a meteor tearing through the sky, and it blasted towards the dragon beasts. At the same time, they would use their magic skills to gather bolts of lightning from the stars and rain down on the dragon beasts. Most of the Tao soldiers who set up the formations were at the primordial chaos realm. However, the formations they set up were almost all level 2 fine formations, which could be compared to the immortal realm. At this moment, Feng Qingshan had blessed them with the power of the timeless arc, so the power of the formations was maximized. For a moment, these human-shaped formations could be compared to the peak of the immortal realm, especially the celestial great array, the Zodion star array, and the Yellow River formation, which had the formation map's supreme treasure, were even more powerful. Every punch, every kick, every knife, every sword, every thunder, and every roar contained infinite power. The dragon beasts, who were caught off guard, were in big trouble this time. As the saying went, take the enemy by surprise, attack when they were unprepared, and kill them when they were unprepared. The low-level dragon beasts at the early and middle stage of the immortal realm were not as strong as the Tao soldiers. Now that they were caught off guard, the result was obvious. However, miserable screams arose one after another. Along with the screams, there was a series of crackling sounds. It was the sound of bones and tendons breaking. The dragon beasts were sent flying like kites with broken strings. Their blood dyed the sky. As a result, almost half of the battlefield was cleared in an instant. There were almost no dragon beasts below the late stage of the immortal realm. However, their failure did not affect the other dragon beasts. After all, although they were not as strong as the Tao soldiers, they were also affected by the resentment. Their spiritual intelligence was low, so they only knew how to kill. They did not know fear. On the contrary, because of the fierce atmosphere and the injuries they received, they became braver as they fought. Moreover, the dead dragon beasts made their auras grow stronger. This was the special blessing of the Dragon Deathland. Because of this and the resentment, although there were many resources here, few people were willing to come here. Indeed, even a divine emperor would be in trouble. Moreover, there were not many resources that divine emperors would want. Chapter 1500. Dangerous places like the 10,000 Beast Mountain and the Fallen Dragon's secret domain between the two levels were tasteless to ordinary people. It was a pity to abandon them. To the weaker warriors, although there were many precious resources in the secret domain, it was obviously too dangerous. To them, it was easy to get in, but it was hard to get out. If they were careless, they would die 10 times out of 10 times. Although it was said that wealth came from danger, it should be at least 9 out of 10 lives. If people could see the way out and knew that they were going to die, no matter how rich they were, no one would be willing to take the risk. If they didn't have the resources, they could always find more in other places. But if they died, everything would be over. They would have nothing left. To the warriors with higher cultivation base, the danger wasn't a big deal to them. However, although there were a lot of resources inside, the quality wasn't good. Thus, they weren't good enough. Naturally, not many people were willing to enter such a dangerous place. However, it was also Feng Qingshan's good fortune. The warriors with low cultivation base didn't dare to enter, and the warriors with high cultivation base didn't want to enter. To Shi Yan, it was just right. His cultivation base was enough to deal with the danger. The resources inside could satisfy his needs. Let's not talk about that. Anyway, Feng Qingshan had ordered his Tao soldiers to burst out with their best power to catch the beasts unprepared. Of course, he wouldn't just target those early stage and middle stage immortal realm existences. As the saying goes, when you draw the bow, you should use the long arrow. To shoot the man, shoot the horse first. To catch the bandits, first capture the leader. Their real target was the late stage and peak immortal realm dragon beasts. The dragon beasts below the late stage of immortal realm were just a fish caught in the crossfire. Who asked them to stand in front of them? They just did it conveniently. After clearing the cannon fodder dragon beasts in front of them, they followed the dragon beasts that were flying backward like shadows. They attacked the late stage of immortal realm and even the peak of immortal realm dragon beasts fiercely. Skies splitting earth. Hand of God. All heavens descend. Shaking stars falling. myriad immortals supreme. However, a burly man instantly stood in the void, holding a cyan battle axe in his hand. With a shout, he waved his arm, and the cyan divine axe was raised high. The axe was swung out in a mysterious trajectory. There was a huge hand that seemed to be able to cover the entire universe. Every single finger was as thick as a mountain ridge, and they were suffused with a supreme and noble brilliance. A strand of the purest and most refined milky white divine light filled the world. A go board descended, and each go piece was like a world. Rather than saying that it was a go board, it would be more accurate to say that hundreds of primordial wastelands and primal chaos worlds descended. Although this wave of ferocious attacks had caught them by surprise, these dragons were not like the dragons at the early and middle stages. Not only were their cultivations higher, but their defenses were also stronger. However, except for the dragon beasts at the late stage of Immortal Realm, the existences at the peak of Immortal Realm reacted quickly and defended. In fact, it was normal. Although the entire Dragon Death land was affected by the resentful aura, the dragon beasts that had been nurtured were just like the savage beasts of the first Heaven Desolation. They only knew how to kill, and their intellect was low. However, it could be predicted that the higher their cultivation base was, the more resentful aura they got rid of would restore their intellect. After they had broken through to the Divine Emperor realm, they were not affected at all. Moreover, the higher their cultivation base was, the stronger their instincts would be. It would be easier for them to sense danger. Thus, it wasn't surprising that the dragons at the peak of Immortal Realm could resist the Tao Soldier formation's attack in a split second. However, in the end, they had acted hastily. Although they weren't killed, they were still injured and were at a disadvantage. If it wasn't for their thick skin and thick flesh, they would have been cut down in a few moves. Fortunately, they had persevered. Moreover, they had the geographical advantage. The dragon beasts in other areas of the Dragon Death land kept coming to help them. Gradually, they had regained the upper hand. Especially when the 8th peak of Immortal Realm dragons arrived, the dragon beast morale was boosted. Their morale soared, and they suppressed the Tao Soldier formation. It wasn't only because the 8 dragon beasts had a high cultivation base, but also because they had a high status. It was like a noble general in the mortal world who had won countless battles leading his army to charge. Of course, it was a great boost to the morale. Rumble. The void parted like a curtain, and 8 tall, strong, and ferocious dragon beasts walked out. 8 wisps of essence chi were like 8 heavenly spears, thrusting into the dark clouds in the sky. They pierced through the sky and presented the image of a deep starry sky. Their blood chi was like the sea, and their murderous auras were like tides. Their auras were torrential and intimidating. In terms of body cultivation, they weren't weaker than Fong Qing Shan. In terms of blood chi, they were even stronger than Fong Qing Shan. Although they were all at the peak of Immortal Realm, the 8 dragons in front of them weren't on the same level as the previous ones. They were like the commanders, the feudal lords among them. It was just like how the peak Immortal level dragon beast had a red title, but the commander level dragon beast had a yellow title. Thus, as soon as they appeared, they stimulated the dragon beast's morale. When the Tao Soldier formation was charged by their auras, it immediately felt like it was carrying the sky on its back. The humanoid figure seemed to be unable to hold on any longer. Damned outsider, you actually dared to slaughter my demon dragon clan. Because the giant dragon that had fallen was chased out of the dragon world, it was resentful. Although it still considered itself a dragon, it didn't want to call itself the Orthodox Dragon Clan. It wanted to establish another clan, just like the fallen angels. It's been so many years. No outsiders have ever dared to act so unscrupulously. Kill. We can't vent our anger if we don't kill them. Although the 8 dragons hadn't gotten rid of the resentful aura, they could communicate and think normally. Because of that, they were even more enraged. They shouted that they wanted to use Fong Qingshan's group as sacrifices to vent their anger. Fong Qingshan snorted. His voice was like a huge bell ringing. A sharp and sonorous sound tore through the sky like a sword chime. It could pierce through gold and crack rocks. Instantly, it suppressed the battle between the Tao soldiers and the dragons and the 8 dragon beast commanders. The scene quieted down. The atmosphere changed. The situation had changed. It wasn't the east wind suppressing the west wind. It was the west wind suppressing the east wind. At this moment, the expressions of the 8 dragon commander beasts changed. As the saying goes, mule or horse, you'll know once you pull it out for a walk. Even though Fang Qingshan did not make a move, the 8 dragon commander beasts stopped underestimating Fang Qingshan after hearing his cold snort. Indeed, one would not have the guts to go against Liangshan if one did not have a few tricks up their sleeves. Since Fang Qingshan dared to kill so brazenly in the Dragonfall Mystery Land, he must have some tricks up his sleeves. They couldn't see through Fang Qingshan's cultivation, but they could feel a strong threat from him. If it wasn't for the fact that they couldn't sense the aura that belonged to an emperor, they would have summoned the Dragon Emperor. Chapter 1501. Kill. Fang Qingshan wasted no time and launched an attack on the 8 commander-level dragons right away. He had to end the battle quickly. Fang Qingshan could vaguely feel the Dragon Emperor's gaze on him from the Dragonfall Mystery Realm. Unlike when the Tao soldiers attacked the peak stage immortal-level dragons, they needed to shoot the horse before shooting the rider. They needed to capture the leader first. They needed to attack from top to bottom. Without the leader, the others naturally wouldn't have a chance. At this moment, Fang Qingshan was different. He needed to cut off the Gordian knot. Only by cutting off the Dragon Emperor's arm would he be able to go all out to deal with the Emperor's attack. Most importantly, as time went by, Fang Qingshan still couldn't sense where the threat was coming from, but it was getting closer and closer. If that was the case, he couldn't let other things distract him. Most of the time, when 2 strong cultivators fought, both sides would end up badly injured, which would benefit the onlookers who were far weaker than them. Fang Qingshan didn't want to end up helping others. Fang Qingshan made his move as soon as he finished speaking. Clang! The melodious sound of a bell rang out. A bronze bell manifested above Fang Qingshan's head. The sun, moon, stars, earth, water, fire, and wind surrounded the bell. Within the bell, there were mountains and rivers, as well as thousands of races of desolation. 5-colored light illuminated the sky, and the sacred power of the chaos shocked the universe. That was the Bell of Chaos. As one of the most powerful unit weapons in the Timeless Arc, with the addition of the Elysium Lotus and the Hibernation Orb, the treasure's power had naturally increased, and it had the power of a level 3 treasure. With a gentle shake, the bell rang, and the universe was illuminated. Heaven and earth lost color, and the universe shook. All thoughts seemed to be frozen. Time and space stopped moving at this moment. The 8 commander-level dragons were no exception. Although they could tell from Fang Qingshan's fearless demeanor that Fang Qingshan seemed to be a little unusual, they could tell that there was something unusual about Fang Qingshan. But in the end, he didn't take it to heart. After all, Fang Qingshan wasn't a deity emperor. He only had the cultivation base of a mortal realm. Plus, they had the advantage of numbers. Even if they couldn't defeat Fang Qingshan like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves, there shouldn't be any big problem. Unfortunately, they didn't know that they had met Fang Qingshan. When a lion hunts a rabbit, it uses all its strength. After summoning the Bell of Chaos, that was not the end. A saber and a mirror appeared in Fang Qingshan's left and right hands. The blade was naturally the Death Scythe. The mirror was naturally the Samsara treasured mirror. The skin of these dragon beasts was thick and tough, and their defense was astonishing. Even Fang Qingshan was a notch weaker than them. If it was a pure physical attack, it was not that he could not injure and defeat them, but Fang Qingshan wanted to kill them in one strike. If that was the case, he might not be able to do as he wished. Therefore, Fang Qingshan took out the Bell of Chaos, the Death Scythe, and the Samsara treasured mirror. It was a very targeted attack. The sound wave attack of the Bell of Chaos could penetrate people's hearts. Although it was not a Dharma treasure specialized in the soul, it was still very effective against soul attacks. The most important thing was that it could freeze time and space, catching them off guard. Otherwise, they would not stand still and let him attack. The death scythe was not only sharp, but it could also harvest souls. The samsara treasured mirror had the same effect. It was precisely because of this that Feng Qingshan used these two treasures. Crack! There was an ear-piercing sound like a blunt knife cutting wood. As the scythe fell, jagged cracks appeared in the void. Faintly, there were souls struggling and moaning on the scythe, and there was also the creepy laughter of a creepy soul. It sent chills down people's spines. Whoosh! The mirror flashed, and the 6 paths of reincarnation appeared. The black and white divine light alternated, and the black and white reincarnation chains appeared out of thin air. As they shook casually, there was a clear sound of collision. Then, roar! The next moment, the souls of the 8 dragon commanders were dragged out of the sea of consciousness by the death scythe and the samsara treasured mirror. There was no way to hide or evade. These dragons were indeed extraordinary. Although they were not as strong as the top 10 inner sect disciples, they were not inferior to the people behind them. Unfortunately, he had met Feng Qingshan. A scholar who had been away for 3 days should be looked at differently. Feng Qingshan had a qualitative leap compared to the time when he was in the inner sect tournament. First, his cultivation had broken through to the peak of the immortal realm. Although there was only a thin line between the peak of the late stage of the immortal realm and the peak of the immortal realm, it was still a qualitative change. In addition, the timeless arc had fused with a level 3 spirit root, and the divine furnace unit had gained another item. Although it had not reached the limit of a breakthrough, its power had multiplied. Even the death scythe and the bell of chaos had greatly increased. The most important thing was that these dragons had strong bodies, but their primordial spirits were too weak. It was like the horizontal kung fu. Although their defense was strong, they had a weak point. Attacking other parts of their body would be fine, but once the weak point was hit, it would be fatal. In addition, they were not as strong as Feng Qingshan. Feng Qingshan had seized the opportunity to kill them. The bell of chaos had stabilized time and space. The death scythe and the samsara treasured mirror had harvested the souls. They could not resist at all. They could only watch their souls being pulled out of the sea of consciousness. It was as easy as harvesting wheat or fishing for fish. No matter how hard they struggled, it was useless. It was like falling into a swamp. The more they struggled, the deeper they sank. All of this happened in the time it takes for a spark to fly off a flint. Apart from Feng Qingshan, no one else was able to react in time. Even the Great Commander, the Second Commander, and the 3 Divine Emperors and Dragon Emperors who were hiding in the dark and watching the fight from the sidelines were not able to react in time. Feng Qingshan is really good. Really good. Another's hero is my enemy. Fortunately, we made a move. Otherwise, if he continued to grow, I'm afraid it would be difficult to suppress him. Yeah, who would have thought that not long ago, in less than a year, he needed all kinds of means to reach the God Emperor combat power. But now, he could easily kill 8 peak Immortal Realm experts. Seeing Feng Qingshan kill the 8 Dragon Beast Commanders, the Great Commander and the others who were hiding in the dark took a deep breath. His heart was filled with 3 parts shock, 3 parts relief, and 3 parts determination. They were surprised because of Feng Qingshan's strength. Through the information they received, they knew that Feng Qingshan was strong and had the means of a God Emperor. Moreover, with the Dao Will Sect's reward, they had specially sent 3 Emperor experts to ambush and besiege him. At first, they thought it was making a mountain out of molehill. Now, they understood that they had underestimated Feng Qingshan. Looking at his attack, just now, he did not use the Timeless Arkansas. Although his cultivation was still at the Immortal Realm, he definitely had the combat power of a God Emperor. Not to mention those dragon beasts. Even they would suffer if they were not careful. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.